Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto and Team 7 got teleported to Jujutsu Kaisen movie. Before we start, please go support Franklin Jr. LeBron for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Naruto is a male. Here. After fighting Kaguya, Team 7 is sent to JK's universe. Upon arrival, they meet their copies, inspirations, and there they have a battle. Who will win? Prologue. We found ourselves in a place made entirely of ice, with snow falling all around. The sky was dark blue and seemingly stormy. The place was filled with icebergs and snow-capped mountains, but all the brilliance of the landscape was overshadowed by what humans would call impossible, or a mirage. In the blue sky were hundreds, no, thousands of people, a golden color that was noticeable, and in a strange way. All of those people were the same person. They all flew in the sky, over 5,000 copies. The clothing of all these copies was simple yet unacceptable. They wore a full black outfit with a golden circle on the chest and several kamas, or tomo as its traditional name. Her black full-body garment reached her ankles, where golden combat sandals from ancient Japan could be seen. On top of all that was a jacket as golden as the purest gold, and behind it, 9 tomos arranged in rows of 3, along with concentric circles, adorned the back of the outfit. The incredible thing about this boy and his copies was that his hair was golden but with a tone similar to fire and 2 strands on each side of his head as if they were improvised bodies. On the boy's back, floating with no apparent malicious intent, were 9 black spheres called Gudadamas or truth-seeking balls, also known as the All or Yin-Yang or space-time itself. All the copies of the boy named Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, were in front of someone even more powerful than the boy. This woman had a full loose kimono that covered her entire body. The kimono was white with golden touches and black tomos on the neck of the kimono like Naruto's. On her head were 2 bodies similar to rabbit ears, and on her forehead a 3rd crimson eye. This was Kaguya Otsutsuki, mother progenitor of the vital energy of humans, chakra or fusion of body and mind. On one of the kimono's sleeves, a sharp, malicious smile appeared, along with yellow eyes with no apparent pupils, only a shadow on the sleeve. This was Zetsu, son of Kaguya Otsutsuki and also nicknamed the heir to her will. Young Naruto fought this woman because, in short, the woman, mother of chakra and the Hera ninja on which this planet called the Element Nations was located, wanted to destroy them all just to recover her energy, which had spread throughout the world in the last 2,000 years. That the woman had been sealed in what is now known as the moon. At the hands of her 2 sons, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, sage of the 6 paths, and Himura Otsutsuki, sage of the moon. The boy, though he seemed at a disadvantage against the woman, was fighting very well so far. Add to that the fact that his current power was only 50% of Hagoromo's son, the same son who inherited 25% of the woman's power, made his minimum power 13% of the woman's original power. Although she had more advantage because the woman right now was only at 35/40% of her original power without having the power that her 2 children inherited, leaving her with half of her power, and her chances of victory increased because she had her brother, who, although he was not her brother, he was her great friend and who had the other half of Hasuromo's power. Naruto was a little tired. Thousands of clones to distract her, keep the Gudadamas away from him so the woman would think he was her clone and thus avoid her death. Add to that the fact that he had already been fighting for 2 days, giving as much chakra as an elite ninja to more than 40,000 shinobi, and even worse, all of this was on his birthday. The most important day of his life was also the day he almost died more than 3 times. Cool, huh? A deep voice in the boy's mind asked. Is the day you were born the same day you died? The voice said with amusement. The voice belonged to Naruto's lifelong companion and almost brother, Kurama. The strongest Biju or tailed beast being the Kyubi no Kitsune or 9-tailed fox that lived inside Naruto, having been sealed inside the blonde when the boy was born due to a misunderstanding and attack that occurred that day. Naruto sweated for his friend. The day I almost died is also the same day my parents died. Life really is a hopeless hitch. The boy had to stop himself from speaking. Apparently in slow motion, he dodged a strangely colored projectile, and when he returned to normal motion, he shot out at high speed, demonstrating the projectile's speed. That again! She really doesn't want our chakra anymore and is ready to kill us. The projectile had a strange shape, flat and bone-like, only with a dead gray tone and color. This projectile was something that could kill him on contact, and the ability the young Uzumaki feared most. Bones, which kill everything, are beyond repair. If that thing even touches you, you're 100% certain to die. Kurama, I think we'd better talk later. If I'm careless, I'll die, he thought to his friend inside his mind. At that moment, a type of portal, the most powerful space-time travel technique, opened, revealing a place that was an endless sea. But the sea didn't seem to be specifically water, or so the boy assumed upon seeing the steam. Moving from his position, Naruto let all the steaming liquid fall beside him, and upon touching the ground, he easily noticed what it was. Acid? There's even a universe with a planet filled with acid? What the heck is this? He thought in amazement. The woman, so far, besides attacking with her energy and the occasional seemingly divine technique, only attacks the universes they've created, using their surroundings and biomes to damage them. Tomorrow, what would she come up with? Multiverse-level destruction or something? The boy thought too much. Suddenly, white fists made entirely of energy struck him head-on, sending him flying. As a result, several clones also took the blow, destroying several in the process. Having stopped spinning in the air, Naruto steadied himself again and frowned. Fine, you want to go rough. Then we'll go rough, he said with a smile, as he and the other hundreds of clones left in his life raised their hands. Good! Ross and Shuriken! They all shouted at once, as a blue sphere with spinning blades appeared in the hands of the original and all the other clones. With that, the thousands of golden spheres flew toward the woman, but without any apparent concern, the woman created a crack in the sky, passing through it, avoiding the aimless attacks. They destroyed thousands upon thousands of mountains in the distance, causing a huge explosion that lit up the sky even more. Naruto ignored the explosion and worried about where he could get out, but he didn't expect what came next. The mountains, the icebergs, began to move, and in an instant he couldn't react. He and his clones were attacked by ice spikes that destroyed all the clones, leaving him trapped between the spikes, causing him pain because it wasn't comfortable at all. Arg. Naruto frowned in pain. It was truly hell fighting this woman. She could manipulate the lava of the lava world, she could manipulate the ice of this world, and she could open portals above him so the acid would rain down on him. Kurama, you need to be more careful. This time, use distraction and attack. Naruto smiled at the strategy. And another voice in his head, apparently female. Naruto-chan. I'll bring your chakra to a boil, said the voice of Koko, the five-tailed beast. And a strong, highly concentrated steam melted the cold icebergs, freeing the sun Mickey once again. Naruto, here we go again. Shadow Clone Jutsu. He shouted and thousands of smoke explosions appeared around him, and the sky was once again covered in Naruto clones. All ready for their battle against the goddess and mother of the most powerful energy in existence. Chakra. Elsewhere. A clone of Naruto could be seen alongside three other people. One was a pink-haired woman with short hair and apparently wearing uniform clothing consisting of a dark blue full-body suit and a light green bulletproof vest, indicating her mid-rank on the shinobi scale. Her eyes were emerald green, and on her forehead was a black rhombus or triangle. This was Sakura Haruno, Naruto's teammate. Next to her was a silver-haired man with a side-swept hairstyle that defied physics. His clothing was identical to Sakura's, with a crimson swirling symbol on each shoulder and a darker vest, indicating his high rank. On his hands were fingered gloves with a kanji meaning, alliance, on both the headband and the hands. Naruto clone, I feel my original self fighting Kaguya, but I feel Sasuke very distant. As if he weren't here but still by my side, said the clone running to the side of a man with long hair and scars on his face. His eyes were crimson with 3 tomos each and his only clothing was black pants, his chest being half normal and the other half was pale white. The Uchiha brat was sent to another parallel universe by Kaguya. Your original self is trying to get Kaguya to open a portal to go get the Uchiha. said a voice thicker than Kurama's but less deep. This was Son Goku, the four-tailed beast and the best in hand-to-hand combat among all the tailed beasts. The clone opened his eyes in surprise. "Hey! This is bad!" he shouted, while everyone around him looked at him with doubt. "Kakashi. Naruto, have you felt anything?" the sensei asked seriously. If the blonde was so worried about something, it must be very serious. "Kaguya sent Sasuke to another dimension. This is bad, very bad. I need the Yin seal to complement the Yang seal, or we won't be able to seal her," she said, circling like a dog looking for its tail. The redhead freaked out when she heard about leaving Sasuke in another dimension, and both light-haired adults became serious. "Kakashi, do you have an idea?" Obito asked seriously. Kakashi thought for a moment, and then sighed. "She only changes dimensions when she feels pressured or when she wants to disappear, but when you open a portal to go from point A to point B in the same dimension, there's always a crimson landscape behind it," he said, remembering seeing that when the woman opened a portal behind Naruto and Sasuke. "Obito, with this we want to get to," I asked with a drop of not understanding anything of what the Hatake was saying, the same with Naruto who had a blank face. "I only understand blah blah blah, and a little bit of blah, without forgetting the blah, then I don't understand anything else of what his sensei was saying." Kakashi sighed, more weary of the situation. "It's just a theory, and it might not work. But maybe that red landscape is a dimension where it's easier to open portals to other places. I mean, I saved the minimum amount of energy to cross from universe to universe." "Obito, they make sense. Opening those things must be exhausting, so if you have something to save that energy, you definitely use it when you have the chance," he said and smiled. "I know what you're trying to get at. I'll go to that dimension where opening portals is much easier, and with Kamui, I'll search for the Uchiha from there, right?" he asked, but Kakashi looked at him. "I hadn't thought of it that way, he. The Hatake laughed nervously because he didn't really think about it, just analyzing the situation. Naruto looked at his sensei with a blank face. "But do you think you're capable? After dying and coming back to life thanks to Naruto's Yen seal, your body is very weak and you don't have as much chakra as before. Do you think you can do it?" the Hatake asked his former teammate again. Obito remained silent, because although he wanted to help and redeem himself for everything he'd done, he still knew it was true. His chakra, although large, was nothing compared to Kaguya's, and if a goddess with a nearly infinite amount of chakra tried to save energy by using a separate dimension due to the wear and tear of opening portals across universes, what would happen to someone who was just a drop in a gigantic ocean? "Honestly, I don't know," she said, and Kakashi lowered his sad gaze, knowing what she was going to say. "But this is necessary, for the world, to redeem myself, and to save you again," he said, laughing, looking at his companion. "Even as a clone, I have a connection to the chakra of the 9 bijus, and my own reserves are larger than average. I could help with all of this," the clone said, taking a step forward. It could be that a sudden death was certain. After all, he didn't know if the Yen seal had truly revived him 100%, but if he could do something to make his death come sooner rather than later, then he would. "I'll go too," Sakura said. "I have over 4 years of chakra stored here. I'll be able to help." She pointed to the rhombus on her forehead. She couldn't say she already trusted the man who was indirectly causing the current problem by creating a war in the world, but it was to save her teammate and love interest. So just this once she would help the Uchiha, who smiled at the help offered. "Thanks, guys, even though I know I shouldn't say it. Don't try to save me. After this, just let me die," he said seriously, his crimson eyes changing into a fan with crooked tips. Chapter 1. Continuing with the fight between the original Naruto and his clones versus the rabbit goddess, the woman could be seen using her energy fists to begin destroying the energy fists, while the original Naruto smiled as he received the memory of the clone who was with his friends, who made another clone before disappearing. "I have to force her to open a portal to that Genesis dimension," he thought, watching the woman slaughter her clones. This was giving him information overload, but nothing he couldn't handle. "The problem is figuring out how to get her to open a portal. I can help you," a shrill voice sounded in Naruto's mind, and he smiled. "Shikaka. What will you do? The voice now known as Shikaku, the one-tailed beast and the least powerful of all the beasts, sounded again in his head. Though there doesn't seem to be much. I'll use my magnet release to split the minerals and extract sand to use in a surprise attack. You keep her busy for a few minutes. Naruto. Why is it that in every plan we make I'm the bait? He asked indignantly. They were a team of 10, and the others only attacked, while he took hits from a crazy goddess. Son Goku, why, 1 we are what we make plans and 2, because you are stupid, said the Four Tails, but suddenly the sound of a blow rang out making Naruto smile to know what was happening. Because you hit me, Matatabi. She yelled at her younger sister, Matatabi, the two-tailed beast and the second weakest of the group. Don't call Naruto-chan stupid. The reason we didn't go out to help is because Kaguya could absorb our power. If she wants other people's power so much, she clearly also wanted her own back. The two-tailed cat said to her older sister, the four-tailed gorilla. Naruto, at least she gave me a good point. He thought, nodding because it was true. The Bijus are actually a division of the Jubi, a 10-tailed demonic creature, and apparently measured me more than 12,000 meters or 12 kilometers. This creature was really more like a tree, the Shinji tree or divine tree that has properties to absorb the natural power of the planet, and thus leave it dry, but giving birth to a fruit that, in short, would turn you into a god with the same abilities that Kaguya had, but a little more powerful. Although the surprising thing about the matter was that, while the Bijus were a part of the Jubi itself was a part of the Shinju, and the Shinju was a part of Kaguya, since she herself planted it in the earth to absorb its power, as she had done for thousands of years before falling to earth with other planets throughout the universe. Shikaku, it's ready. Make her stay still, he said, and Naruto nodded. Good. One-tail ceiling style, Rasengan. He shouted, and a golden sphere with black symbols appeared in his hand, and with a twist, he threw the sphere towards the woman who saw it coming. Stretching out his hand, the sphere began to be absorbed, but, surprisingly, the symbols began to move and place themselves around the woman who could not move. That bastard, mother, we must run. The longer we stay here, the more this seal will hold you back. The black mask named Zetsu spoke to his mother, who, without saying anything, opened a portal in the sky that began to slowly swallow her. From a dodge, Obito, seeing this, stared at the portal and activated his power. Dash, Kamui! He shouted in his mind, as he, the clone, and Sakura disappeared from Kakashi's side. Get back safely, he thought as he looked around. He felt useless right now. He might be the sensei of the 3 young men, but they were doing more than he was in this entire battle to save the lives of their planet, and the millions more that the Otsutsuki would absorb when it wiped out the element nations. Shikaku, what the hell? They made me collect so much sand for nothing, or what the hell? The one-tailed tanuki shouted angrily as an abnormal sphere of sand came out from behind. Naruto was scared by the amount. What the hell, stupid tanuki? It was just to distract her, idiot. Not to build her a beach. Kurama shouted from inside Naruto. The amount of sand that the tanuki took out from this place that was mostly ice and snow was astonishing. More because of the cold place than the amount, but still the amount was astonishing. Stupid Kyubi, you never told me when to stop. So I just kept scooping sand. Naruto grabbed his head from all the screaming. Shut up! The two-tailed Nikomata, Matatabi, shouted for the last time, beating up her siblings. Sorry, Naruto-chan, these 2 idiots don't know how to be quiet. Naruto rolled his eyes. If his life was like this from now on, he'd either be deaf in a few days or die of a heart attack. Whichever comes first. Doesn't matter. Back to the point, Shikaku. You can use that sand for something important, he said in response. The sand took on black symbols, and the shape of an apparent sand tanuki measuring over 600 meters with a gigantic tail over 500 meters long slowly formed. Naruto flew over the Shikaku-shaped accumulation of sand and sat on the creature's head, resting his hands on it. Hey, Shikaku! It's nice and all, but what good will this do me in a fight against Kaguya? The Uzumaki's question was answered instantly when the sand figure's closed eyes opened and golden eyes with a 4-pointed star appeared, having 4 points on each side and a black iris. Daddy's back, press. Finally free again. the creature shouted, causing Naruto to panic. What the hell? Shikaku? How the hell did you get in and out of this thing? He asked as he began to fly, lifting the hands of the apparent tanuki. But this caused the creature's eyes to close and return to their lifeless hue. Huh! I can't stay out if you don't touch that body. I need you to make contact, so we can fight together. The tanuki shouted inside his head. Do you need me to touch you all the time? But how did I fight? He shouted indignantly because it seemed like the tanuki wanted to fight alone, while he was the drummer or something similar. Kurama, you're an idiot, kid. You can use a simple clone, while you can hide the clone inside Shikaku's head so he can fight, said the fox with a face that said it all. And although he couldn't see it, Naruto could tell that the face was about his stupidity. Well, that's a good plan. He shrugged. Ninja art, shadow clone jutsu, he said, and a burst of smoke appeared beside him. Your Shikaku and I will fight. And if you can, collect natural chakra. That way we can enhance this braggart's attacks, he said, whispering the last part to the clone, who nodded without commenting. Placing himself in a lotus position above the tanuki's head, he placed his feet in a lotus position while calmly meditating, and a blue energy slowly began to surround him. As this happened, a layer of sand began to slowly bury the boy, hiding him in the tanuki's head. The tanuki is outside, baby, I shouted excitedly while smiling bloodthirstily. Fine. Let that hitch come back and I'll beat her until I beg to be defeated by Shikaku-sama. Naruto rolled his eyes at the tanuki. She's your grandmother, he thought, reflecting on the tanuki's insults toward the woman who was technically his grandmother. It doesn't matter, just focus. She might come back any moment, he said seriously. And as if God were listening, suddenly a portal opened, letting out Kaguya, who had a scratch on her cheek, and a black-haired man in purple clothes fell behind her while, in her right hand, lightning sparked and the sound of birds singing rang out. Sasuke! Naruto shouted happily for having his brother back. But that happiness vanished when he saw that another all-killing bone came out of the Otsutsuki's hands in the direction of the black-haired man named Sasuke. He, without giving it any importance, attempted to strike the all-killing bone with his lightning technique called Chidori. This resulted in a massive explosion of lightning that caused a huge smokescreen to cover the sky due to the power of the Uchiha's lightning attack. But as the smoke from the astonishing technique cleared, a body turned to ash began to slowly crumble, causing a smile to appear on the black mass of Kaguya's sleeve. Wee! It seems the Uchiha has already fallen, he said, amused. This shocked everyone present by the death of the only other boy capable of stopping everything that was happening. Still next to Kakashi, space distorted as a mini hole from where a death with bleeding eyes and a Sakura without her Chunin jacket or ninja bandana emerged. Obito! Are you okay? The silver-haired man asked, looking at his redeemed companion. The white-haired man began to take a deep breath, closing his eyes in pain. Creating portals through space-time large enough for a person to pass through a dimension the size of a universe was extremely difficult. As Sasuke and Kaguya are fighting. Open a portal for them to come here, we have to help them, he said, breathing heavily. His chakra was almost at zero. He had to open more than 4 or 5 portals with universal distances, and although he received help from Naruto's clone and Sakura's 4 years of chakra, it was still a challenge. More because the clone's chakra ran out and they only depended on Sakura's chakra. Kakashi-sensei. Kaguya is there, but where's Sasuke? Kakashi lowered his head sadly, making the point clear. Sakura's eyes began to water as Obito, with what little strength he had, cursed loudly. Without the Uchiha seal, Naruto's young seal was useless. Because everyone's acting like idiots. Kaguya's still standing, a voice said from behind Naruto. He turned around to see the same dark-haired man from before. The Uchiha's face was blank as he stared back. But how? You were there, and now how the hell are you still alive? The Uzumaki shouted, looking at the Uchiha, who coldly pointed at his left eye, which was purple with concentric circles around the pupil and very similar to Kaguya's third eye. It had 6 tomos in the first 2 concentric lines. It's an ability of my Rinnegan, It allows me to change with anything in my range of vision in a timeless way. I mean, instantly, the Uchiha said seriously. And as Naruto looked at the pile of dust that must have been the Uchiha, a puff of smoke came out, leaving the blonde with a poker face. You switched with one of your own clones! Idiot, that could be me right now! Sasuke, my Rinnegan gives me the opportunity to differentiate between fake and real, while my Sharingan lets me see your energy. Only you have the energy of the 9 Bijus and your clones can barely connect with that energy, and lastly, the good Adamas can't be cloned like all your weapons. He said, and Naruto blanked. All the points were real, so he shouldn't say anything. Okay, idiot. Now let's get back to the fight. We must finish off Kaguya as quickly as possible, he said, and Naruto nodded seriously. I hope you remember that she's absorbing the chakra of every living being in our world through infinite Tsukuyumi. The Uzumaki frowned. That was something that had them against the clock. If the chakra mother continued to absorb the chakra of others, they would all become mindless husks, creating beings called white setsu. On top of that, the woman was recovering her energy, which before was 35% of her true power. Now it's at 37% or more. Shikaku, listen to that idiot Uchiha and let's start the fight. The Uchiha looked at the one-tailed tanuki without interest. How is it outside? And more importantly, isn't it dangerous here? Kaguya could absorb it and regain more of her original power. Naruto, well, he's not really out. It's just that a clone of mine is sending some of his chakra into that accumulation of sand. That way his consciousness is out, and we can fight. He said, and the Uchiha, apparently without any importance, nodded. Let it only be of some use, said seriously. Now that they were done talking, everyone got ready to start the fight. Baijidama. The first to attack was the Sand Tanuki, which launched a black sphere the size of the creature's mouth. Kaguya ignored it and entered a portal, allowing the sphere to pass through. It collided with an iceberg and exploded, causing widespread destruction. Sasuke frowned at the destruction, while Naruto's sweat dropped. A normal Baijidama only destroys cities. The Jubis can destroy countries and multiple countries, but the Shikakus had apparently just destroyed the entire continent. Or so Naruto could tell from the gap in the distance. Naruto, I think my clone is giving it too much natural energy, he thought with a drop of sweat. Although they were lucky that that attack was only the Biju, because if that attack had been launched by a Biju vessel it could wipe out the entire world, since a Biju unleashes all its power inside a vessel. Naruto, Shikaku! Attacking like this will only make her run away. We won't be able to seal her like this, he said next to the Tanuki, who heard but didn't seem to care. You heard? Yeah, brat, I heard. No super powerful attacks or she'll run away in fear from the Shikaku thing, he shouted, and Naruto blanked his face. Yeah, that's exactly it, he thought and sighed as he left the Tanuki. When, behind him, in a swift movement, a portal opened, allowing a Kaguya to rush through at full speed and try to catch him with her hair, which lengthened to catch him. But reacting quickly, Naruto created a type of chakra blade and cut the woman's hair, then flew away from Kaguya, who frowned slightly, and trained in a portal, leaving the blonde. Close enough. He reacted a little later and he would have captured me, seriously thought. Stopping floating, he landed next to Sasuke, who looked at him seriously. We only have 2 options, either we take the fight to their ground or we take it to ours. Naruto heard what the Uchiha said and nodded in understanding. We need her to leave an opening, it will never happen on our turf. Meaning we need for her to take us to a dimension where she has the advantage and not like here, where the ice element around is useless against your fire and my steam, lava and fires, he said, and Sasuke rolled his eyes. Was it necessary to say that you have thousands of Kekkai Genkai from parts of the Bijus? Naruto smiled. You always mention your Sharingan. I can mention my Kekkai Genkai now. The Uchiha simply shook his head for his friend. Leave it like that, he said, watching as another portal emerged from Kaguya, but apparently more serious than before. We have to pressure her to take us to a dimension where she can gain an advantage. We'll seal her there, he said, and Naruto smiled in agreement. I have a plan, Shikaku, will you help us? he asked, and the tanuki smiled. Anything to finish that hitch off. Okay. Here's the plan, I'll keep it short and sweet. The plan is as follows. Later. Good. That's the plan, prepare to do it, he said to the tanuki and his reincarnated brother. All this, without noticing how behind them a mini portal closed, and the mass appeared in Kaguya's sleeve with a sharp-toothed grin. Ha ha ha, just like his predecessor, the incarnation of Ashura is quite a genius. Don't you think so, mother? The creature said, looking at the woman who didn't respond. Good. We just have to be prepared for that little plan. Naruto, water style, shark prison dome. Right, Naruto suddenly appearing next to Kaguya who couldn't react. And from all of Naruto's chakra points, his chakra began to come out in the form of water, causing a large sphere to form enclosing Kaguya inside. Once inside, the woman frowned. But before she could absorb the water, a massive surge of electricity covered her body and the entire water dome, causing her body to begin to boil from the super hot water the electricity left behind. Outside the dome, Naruto smiled as he watched Sasuke hold both hands on the dome, sending out a massive blast of electricity with his lightning technique. Chidori Nagashi. Naruto, good. It's ready, Shikaku. It'll be your turn soon, he said as the water sphere slowly began to disappear. Sasuke, Naruto, he's already absorbing it, he said while intensifying the rays. Naruto smiled at what his friend had said. Perfect. The less water there is, the faster the rays heated up, he said, as even more steam escaped from the water, which was literally boiling. Until, instead of boiling, the water suddenly froze, surprising the blonde and his companions. What? How did he do it? He thought angrily. At that moment, the ice cracked, allowing Kaguya to emerge unharmed. Did you really think a plan like that would finish us off? Mother created chakra. She can and has the potential to use the techniques of her world, both Kekkei Genkai and Kekkei Tota, she said, smiling. She knew they hadn't expected her mother to be able to use the ice element like a member of the Yuki clan. Naruto frowned, but smiled. It doesn't matter to Bayo, we already won, he said. Zetsu was confused by this. We've foiled their plan to capture Mother in that water dome and boil the water until she's exhausted. Now we have the advantage, he said, smiling, but the Uzumaki's smile didn't fade. Did you really think we wouldn't notice your presence behind us? I'm connected to nature, which encompasses all of existence. Planet, solar system, galaxy, universe, multiverse, megaverse, hyperverse, everything. Someone behind me would be easily spotted, Dada Bayo. Zetsu frowned, when suddenly, gigantic clumps of sand were created around him and began to cover Kaguya, who was amazed why she didn't feel the sand's chakra as it moved. Take it, Hitch! Shikaku wins! Shikaku shouted happily while Zetsu got angry, really angry now. Mother! Now! Chapter 2. He shouted, as if on command. Kaguya's third eye, nicknamed the Rinne Sharingan, pulsed, and at that moment, the entire environment changed to a green space with mini pyramids on the floor. But the important thing wasn't the location, but the position of everyone in this place. Everyone, absolutely everyone, was pinned to the ground by the gravity of this place, which was literally crushing. It was as if they had a planet on their backs. Sakura was the most affected. She felt dizzy and was slowly losing consciousness. This place was anything but ideal for her. Naruto, move! Sasuke shouted to Naruto, who was at his side, while in front of them was a Kaguya who, although to a lesser extent, was also affected by the dimension. She could be on her knees and Naruto and Sasuke could barely crawl. Slightly to Naruto's right, a dying man was looking a little better thanks to his eyes, which helped him stay stable in this dimension. To Sasuke's left, Kakashi was also preparing. Unlike the others, he had nothing but good chakra control to ease the pain of gravity and, with that, be able to slowly stand up. Kaguya, leaving the games, prepared her hands to throw two all-killing bones at Naruto and Sasuke. Their arms were in tremendous pain and they moved to the side. But the movement left Naruto with his back facing downwards, leaving him defenseless. While Sasuke groaned in pain as he felt his arms hit the ground after trying to stand up, This dimension was no small feat if even the woman who created him is being affected. It's a miracle they're still alive. Sakura. Sasuke thought, remembering that the girl was here. And with Sakura, he hated being dragged to a farther place, if this universe had the same concepts as theirs. The higher up, the less affected by gravity, so finishing the climb up that hill was a good way to relieve, at least 1%, of the pain of this place. Naruto, Garf. He groaned in pain. This place was hell, had the pyramids on his back that were even more annoying. Mother. Tighten this tighter, they can't move anymore, Zetsu said, emerging from the sleeve. Gravity affected him less because he was a viscous mass. At his command, the woman, as always, obeyed, without speaking, and 2 ash bones popped out again. Kakashi and Obito, seeing this, jumped, enduring the pain. They ran as fast as they could to stand in front of Naruto and Sasuke. At the same time, both bones went out to kill the duo. As if in slow motion, the strange death eyes called the Mangekyou Sharingan stared in the direction of the bone that was heading toward Kakashi. And as if space itself were bending, a whirlpool appeared in the air, and Kaguya's bone was consumed. But because of this, the bone that was leading toward him dug into his chest. Haha, stay a little longer, Kakashi. If you go now, you'll be in the way as always, thought Obito, as little by little, his skin began to crack and his stomach began to turn to ash. Oh, Obito. Why? The white-haired man looked at his silver-haired friend. Obito! Naruto shouted upon seeing the man in front of him. Sasuke, taking advantage of the commotion of the moment, used his supreme Rinnegan to appear next to Kaguya with a Chidori in main aiming to hit her. But as an escape, Kaguya used her Rinne Sharingan, causing the entire environment to change again and everyone to appear in a dimension with a planet of mountains and red biomes. The sky was a very beautiful lime green and clouds adorning the sky. No longer affected by gravity, Naruto quickly stood up and hurriedly placed his hand on the deceased's back. Surprisingly, this caused the disintegration to gradually slow down, but unfortunately, that didn't mean it would stop. Sasuke saw this and just turned his head away, while Kakashi lowered his head in sadness at the loss of his last friend and teammate. First Rin, then Sensei, and now death. Damn! I can never do anything, even when they die in front of me, the Hitaki thought angrily. Meanwhile, Naruto, at his side, was giving his all, striving to achieve something, anything. He knew it was nearly impossible to save him, since unlike any other technique, Kaguya's bones can literally kill cells. And his young son Mark, miraculous as it may be, can't build a cell from scratch. He needs at least one living cell to use the seal on someone and multiply it infinitely to recreate something. His senseis knew I was a good example. But even knowing this, I couldn't simply accept his death. I didn't want to. Damn! He shouted in despair as everyone watched. Naruto, I'll attack this time. I'll be the distraction. Wait for an opening, he said as a purple aura covered him. And at that moment, a 648-meter tall phantom samurai warrior appeared, covering the dark-haired man. Naruto tried to go back on what the Uchiha had said. After all, they still hadn't made any progress in curing death. Leave it alone, Naruto. We both know you can't cure me. Naruto was shocked. No, he said angrily. I refuse to accept it. You've done so much after joining our side. It's because of you that I'm alive. It's because of you, Sasuke is alive. I can't just let your life slip away like that without trying anything, he said, and Death smiled at him. Even if I hadn't suffered this attack, we both know he'll die. I was already dead, and you brought me back to life, but that left my body very weak, and with all the overexertion I've done since reviving, my body wouldn't hold up anymore. Naruto looked down. Not only because it was true, but because he couldn't do anything about it. While the white-haired man's death did affect him, it wasn't the only thing that affected him. He'd be a fool to act like that over a death after being in a war where thousands had died, but suffering an absolute loss a few minutes ago, and this one now hurt him more than usual. I can't let you die. They're already dead. I don't want you to die too. He screamed as tears fell from his eyes and a wailing sound erupted. Many would call him a baby, Crying in a war was stupid. But he couldn't hold back any longer. By saying they, Sakura, Obito, and Kakashi were surprised. While Sasuke just looked without saying anything to know what Naruto meant, and like Sasuke, Zetsu smiled knowing what he meant. So you do know? I thought your sensor range wasn't that wide, but it seems that wasn't true. Ha ha. See, fighting is pointless anymore. They already lost the war without losing the battle, he said while smiling. Obito looked at the black mucus seriously. What do you mean, Zetsu? Zetsu, I don't know. Why don't you tell the brat to say it? Obito looked at Naruto, who was looking at the ground, still touching his back while tears continued to fall. They are gone. All the nations, every life there has perished, he said while more tears fell. He tried to keep it in. From the moment Kaguya teleported them to the ice dimension, he felt like most living beings were dying. He continued fighting because there were still people to fight for. But this final teleportation to the dimension of gravity was what decided everything. The woman, clearly unnecessarily, absorbed all life, not only from the planet but from the humans and living beings of the elemental nations. Every drop of life vanished. Everything disappeared, and possibly even the planet itself. With a dead core, the planet will clearly die in minutes. I don't know what she's already done. Obito lowered his head as he listened. Meanwhile, Sakura, terrified, covered her mouth with her hand, holding back a sob. Her friends, parents, and teachers were dead. That can't be possible, like it happened, Hataki thought sadly. Everything was almost over now. Naruto and Sasuke had gained the power to destroy Madara, and Obito had turned to the side of good. In less than an hour, they went from being the winners to being the only living beings in their old world? Is this even possible? Sakura thought, kneeling in shock. Really, everyone is gone. Tsunade-sama, Kao-san, Tu-san, Ino Pink, Shikamaru, Chuji, Hinata, Kiba, even the pregnant Kurenai, they've all died. She was supposed to help her give birth to Kurenai. She promised her, it was her promise to her. She promised her before going to war that when the war was over she would be the doctor to help her deliver the baby. But now she couldn't keep that promise. Obito, you've already lost everything. But you can still fight, get up. Because of Obito's words. Naruto charmed his head in confusion. Naruto, what's the point? Whispered listlessly. Obito, makes a lot of sense, he said, gaining Naruto's attention. Although it's not good, it's still an option. You can't save them, but you can avenge them. Many of them wanted you to end her in revenge, they trust you, he said, smiling at a Naruto who looked at him surprised while tears still fell on his faces. More about you, Naruto, you are a shining sun. They all trusted you that you were going to save them, and even though you failed, they didn't want you to just give up. Think about Jiraiya, Minato-sensei, Kushina. All of them, even in death, still trust you and expect you to win. You may not be Hokage, but you can still be the leader of the wills that were left to you, and by leading that will you will win this battle, set the stage. As he finished saying that, his body finally crumbled to ash while Naruto, who had his hand outstretched, smiled. So be it, Tebeo, he said, clenching his fist while smiling determinedly. But with a mocking tone, Zetsu began to laugh, confusing Naruto. Equal in intelligence, equal in strength, equal in mentality, but equally foolish, he said, smiling as he has been doing all this time. Naruto smiled even wider. That may be so, but he and I have a big difference, Naruto said as he created a chakra sword in his hand at lightning speed and appeared next to Kaguya. And I will kill you! He screamed, slashing at the arm Zetsu was on. Taking the arm, he threw it forcefully at Sasuke, who gave a slight smile at the creature in front of him. Burn! Amaterasu! He said with a slight smile as the famous flames hotter than the sun, the flames of the sun goddess, or the flames of hell suddenly appeared on the creature. Upon touching the creature, it began to incinerate, and within a few milliseconds, its life vanished from the physical plane. Good! Naruto shouted, smiling. While still standing next to Kaguya, who seemed surprised, he punched her in the face, sending her flying. When, with an animal-like grin, another gigantic Baijidama collided with the woman, causing a smaller but still astonishing amount of destruction. "Shikaku!" Naruto said happily. He thought the tanuki had stayed in the other dimension. "But why are you so small?" I asked now, looking at a 300-meter-tall tanuki. "The gravity of the other dimension ripped me in half, and that hitch left half my body in that dimension, so I reassembled what I had. I can't just get sand out of here like that. I need time." Naruto understood. "Well, if that helps keep you from destroying everything, that's fine. Sakura and Kakashi-sensei couldn't resist a Baijidama of that caliber," he said, remembering the multi-country Baijidamas. It wasn't very continental, but you could say it was a small continent. "Sasuke, we can't keep wasting chakra, Naruto. My reserves are halfway gone, and yours aren't far behind, even though you have nearly infinite chakra from the beasts. You'll still get married," she said as she approached Naruto, deactivating her Manjikyu Sharingan technique called Susanoo. Naruto thought. "That's true. But we can't seal it without first removing the beasts' bodies. Even with their consciousnesses and 20% of their chakra in me, they won't want to be inside me my whole life. And they can't just manifest like that," he said, thinking of a solution. Until Naruto and Sasuke had to move to let the all-killing bones cross, letting them continue towards Shikaku, who opened a sand hole in his chest so they could cross without problems. The attack came from one who already had her arm back. "Her regeneration is also a problem," the Uchiha said, annoyed. In addition to being nearly immortal and able to absorb techniques, her endurance was still incredible, and adding in her chakra, the only reason they hadn't lost was the woman's lack of variation. "Naruto, Sasuke, get away!" 9 Naruto clones shouted with attacks in their hands. "Shikaku!" The first one shouted with a Rasen Shuriken made of apparently sand and bearing the characteristic markings of a sand tanuki. "Matatabi!" The second one shouted with a Rasen Shuriken with black markings and a blue flame, which were the flames of the two-tailed Nico. "Isabu!" A third clone shouted with a Rasen Shuriken that had water and orange coral bases. "There, Goku!" shouted the fourth with a lava Rasen Shuriken, and next to him a fifth clone had a Rasen Shuriken of boiling water with strong steam. "Kokuo!" "Saiken!" The sixth clone shouted with a Rasen Shuriken that shot out bubbles that were apparently harmless. "Chomei!" shouted a seventh with a Rasen Shuriken that shot out golden glow. The eighth, who had a Rasen Shuriken that shot ink, smiled along with the last one who had a golden Rasen Shuriken. "Gyuki and Kurama!" all the clones said while smiling. But widening their smiles, a blue aura began to cover them. "Sage Mode Bijus, Rasen Shuriken." Empowering the techniques with natural energy, the clones launched the 9 techniques at the woman, who casually received them. The explosion created by the collision caused the entire planet to shake from the strong winds it created. "Naruto," as she came out unharmed. The blonde man shouted, surprised to see the woman escape the attack unharmed. Or so it seemed. Suddenly, the area that had received the most damage exploded, and a white object emerged from her right arm, almost completely covering it. "Shikaku, what the hell is that?" the tanuki said in surprise as an arm of the white mass came out and instantly absorbed him, surprising Naruto and everyone present. "Shikaku!" he cried out in concern. But a voice in his mind calmed him. "Calm down, brat. It only absorbed the sand and your clone. I'm still inside here," the tanuki said calmly. Sighing, Naruto nodded calmly. "Good. Don't come out anymore," he said angrily, and inside he received a shout of indignation from the Biju. "If you come out, that thing could absorb you, and we don't know if you could come out unharmed like this." The Biju snorted inside his head and Naruto blanked his face. When, suddenly, the white mass began to take the shape of the faces of the Bijus appeared on one side while on the head a type of white rabbit with Kaguya's Rinna Sharingan on its forehead. Sasuke looked at this seriously. "Is this a reaction to the Biju's chakra in Naruto's attack?" he thought as the mass moved. But he frowned when the creature's sight fell on them. Naruto was the first to have to move because of the creature's white arm. "That thing wants to eat me!" Naruto screamed like crazy as he tried to fly away. He was slower at flying than he was at running, which gave him a huge disadvantage right now. "Sasuke, Naruto. He wants the beast chakra, don't let him take you! He shouted, but had to move away from a giant hand. What? He wants me too? He asked himself, as he activated a chidori in his left hand and began slicing at the creature with skillful steps. It looked more like a dance than anything else. Sasuke did a double somersault while thinking, why is he chasing me too? My being. At that moment, Sasuke frowned in understanding. He doesn't just want the beast's chakra. He wants Kaguya's power, but doesn't that mean he'll absorb her? He thought in surprise, watching how the creature surprisingly also absorbed the woman who resisted. But little by little, it was absorbed more and more. Is it absorbing her? Kakashi said, watching this from afar, unable to do anything. Kakashi-sensei! This thing wants the beast's chakra! Naruto said as he flew away from the white hand. The Hotake was surprised to hear this. But Sakura and I still have remnants of the Kyuubi's chakra, he said in surprise. And as if in warning, hands moved toward the pink-haired girl, who began to run. While that was happening, in the other world, a young man with black hair and diving goggles could be seen. His clothing was a combination of blue and orange, while behind him was a Japanese fan with a white bottom and a red top. This was the symbol of the famous Uchiha clan, the clan to which the young and deceased Uchiha belong. This young man was in his youth. Arin! Obituary said in surprise to the girl in front of him. She was a brown-haired girl with 2 purple marks on both of her cheeks, and like the young man, she wore a bandana on her forehead that had the symbol of a leaf with a swirl inside. This was the young and dead Rin Noira. Hello? Back with the living. Kakashi could be seen moving away from the hands, using kunai along with paper bombs since no ninjutsu worked on the hands that absorbed every drop of chakra from the jutsus. Damn, Sakura, watch out! He shouted, seeing how a bad guy was close to grabbing his student. He was about to go help, but at that moment a blue chakra rose from Obito's ashes and entered Kakashi. When he opened his eyes again, he saw himself as a child, and in front of him, a young Obito was standing. Oh Obito! What are you doing here? No, what am I doing here? He asked, surprised, seeing the boy who smiled at him. I'm here to help you. Rin and I had a good time, and I'll be with Sensei soon. So I'll hold your hand so you don't interrupt, he said, pointing at his eyes. Kakashi, will you give me the Manjikyu? I couldn't use one before because of its consumption. What difference will it make now? He said because he knew his friend was aware of his weakness due to having the dojutsu. Death, don't worry. When I used it to come here, I noticed that the dead don't consume chakra, so the wear isn't a problem, he said, smiling. Well, spend time with them again. What was your name? Like that. Kakashi opened his eyes as the pattern of the death Manjikyu appeared in his eyes. Kakashi no Sharingan. Chapter 3. Meanwhile, Naruto and Sasuke were either moving away or destroying the hands of the white thing that was trying to swallow them, and they were settling in. This thing has no end. The blonde asks angrily as he throws a mini Rasen shuriken at one of his hands, causing a gigantic explosion to occur. I must start learning less destructive techniques. If I ever fight near a crowd, I could only use a common Rasengan and Taijutsu, he thought, but remembering the crowd, he frowned. It was still painful to lose your entire planet, friends and acquaintances in a matter of minutes. All the children, elderly adults, so many people who had nothing to do with it all died because of one woman's whim to recover an energy that had spread across the world and ceased to be hers thousands of years ago. Due to his distraction, the blonde was almost grabbed by the rabbit's hand, but luckily a sand arm stopped the rabbit's arm, allowing the Uzumaki to escape more calmly. Thank you, Shikaku, he said, smiling. The tanuki inside his head gave a smug smile. Technically, aside from giving the blonde his Kekkei Genkai and refilling his reserves whenever the blondes dropped below 1% capacity, the tanuki was the only one who directly assisted in the battle due to his magnet release to attract minerals, though his favorite was sand. Naruto was flying when he noticed a hand chasing Sakura. Sasuke! Sakura is in danger! He shouted at the Uchiha, who was trying not to be touched by the hands, and to do so, he used his Rinnegan's special ability, changing places repeatedly in different directions without any pattern so that the creature wouldn't follow him. The black-haired man frowned when he saw the pink-haired woman. He couldn't do much from here, and he himself was in trouble right now. His shinobi mind told him to let her because, besides being the only ones fighting, he and Naruto were the most important. The others were there by pure luck of being near Naruto when its Tsukuyami technique was cast, and it was true. But the remorseful side of him, repentant for his actions, wanted to help her. He'd done so much wrong to them, and letting her die now that he could have saved her wasn't something he'd let go of in order to earn her forgiveness. A forgiveness he truly wanted to earn. Closing his right eye with the 3 tomos, when he opens it he reveals the design of his Mangekyou, a black 6-pointed star with a 3-pointed crimson fan and a black pupil. Susanoo. She thought flying at high speed for the girl who was about to be caught by the hand that was faster than her, but suddenly a hand of a blue Susanoo appeared and grabbed Sakura before being caught. "Well done, team!" Naruto shouted happily as he threw mini dark spheres called Baijidamas at the hand, which was stopped by the small, not small, explosions of the technique. But suddenly, a purple sword from Sasuke's giant Susanoo severed the hand of the rabbit chasing Naruto. "That wasn't me, dope," Kamaldo said, trying to figure out who it was. Naruto turned to see where the Uchiha was looking and his eyes widened in surprise. "Kakashi-sensei!" He shouted from what his eyes were seeing, what his senses were feeling, and what his danger sensor was warning him about, but what his mind didn't believe. In front of him, a sea blue Susanoo over 700 meters tall, larger than Sasuke's, appeared in front of them. Its design was the same as any complete Susanoo, a Japanese samurai with 2 swords held by the 2 back hands that transformed into wings for flight, a demonic-looking samurai mask, and a pointed nose, also mirroring Kakashi. The Susanoo had the same scar on its left eye. In the hand of this Susanoo was Sakura, who was thrown into the crystal of the forehead where the Hatake was prepared for the battle against the rabbit that stared at him. Both things were almost the same size, with the rabbit being larger. Sasuke, TSK, first the Sharingan, then the Mangekyou and now the Susanoo, which will come next the Rinnegan. He thought ironically, but still smiled at his sensei and their achievements. All of that without being an Uchiha was something that should be praised. The Hatake could be seen staring at the creature. "Guys, I'll take care of it. You guys come up with a plan to take this thing down," he said, as 2 shuriken with the same design as Kakashi's eyes appeared in both of his hands. "Kamui shuriken!" The Susanoo threw both shuriken, causing space to bend and both arms to split in 2, causing the palms to fall to the ground, and with that, Kakashi's Susanoo used a sword to throw a slash at the creature. But he is in a quick movement down the cut, letting his back pass over his body. This caused several mountains in the distance to be cut like butter. From below, the rabbit tried to grab the Susanoo, but he used both of his lower hands to deliver a double punch to the head and kick him away. "Double Kamui sword," Kakashi said as the sword turned black and his free hand grabbed the other, now black, sword. Positioning himself to fight, the rabbit opened its mouth and a crimson Baijidama came out, ready to be launched at the Susanoo. The Baijidama was thrown at Susanoo, who easily used his sword to slash it, splitting the Baijidama like it was paper, causing it to explode behind the Susanoo, and as a collateral of the cut, a large crater opened in the ground, allowing lava to flow out. While this was happening, Naruto and Sasuke could be seen in the distance watching the confrontation, while they thought of a plan to end this battle. "We have to take out the beasts, but how do we do that?" Sasuke looked at his companion. "Do you expect me to know?" "The best move would be to seal the beast that absorbed Kaguya, and while the seal is being created, do the same thing you did with Obito when he was the beast Jinchuriki. Use the portion of its chakra you have to draw the other parts out," said the serious Uchiha. Naruto thought for a moment about that plan, which wasn't bad at all. "Okay, but we don't know if we'll be able to extract the portions of the bijus. I managed to convince Obito to give up the tug-of-war, and that's why we won. Even though I have more biju chakra than before, we still don't know if we'll be able to extract it." "Sasuke, we must discover that on the march, but now we have to see how we will manage to seal that thing without being absorbed. Upon contact it will destroy us," Sasuke said seriously, and Naruto also became serious. "Naruto, I think it would be the right thing to take a chance this time. It's our only chance," he said, smiling in a less than happy way. The Uchiha looked at his friend and closed his eyes, trying to figure out what the Uzumaki was thinking. "Good," he said, and they both turned around to return to the battle. But when they turned around, they saw something that surprised them. With Kakashi. This one was seen using his right Kamui sword to slice the rabbit in two, seemingly cutting the space itself alongside the creature. What surprised the duo of demigods was that, from the underside of the creature, a gigantic black sphere began to grow little by little. What was surprising wasn't the size, but the sphere itself. "Sasuke, Naruto, is that?" Naruto nodded. "Gudadamas," he said, surprised by the artifact. A Gudadama was, in simple terms, a sphere-shaped spacetime that could deactivate any technique that didn't use natural energy and with the ability to, in addition to damaging the soul without hesitation, destroy matter to a level beyond the quantum, being an absolute zero, that is, an existential eraser at the very least. A Gudadamas of that size could wipe out the entire planet due to its size, but if it explodes... The blonde swallowed hard at the thought. The entire solar system, not the entire universe, would be destroyed. And that was only at its initial size, but at the speed it was growing, not only Kaguya's dimension, but the others and possibly the main universe would be in danger in a short time. "Sasuke, we must stop this now," said the Uchiha seriously. They didn't know where the Gudadama came from. Possibly it was Kaguya's last attempt to get out of that thing that apparently failed. But even so, they must find a way to end it, or that thing will end them. "Naruto, I wonder how Kaguya or that thing created a Gudadama. I thought only the old sage knew how to make that thing," he said, annoyed. As the golden aura began to cover him and explode into energy, a gigantic fox over 600 meters tall, like Susanoo, appeared around him, starting with a roar. "Kurama!" He smiled happily. The Uchiha only opened his eyes with his Manjikyu active. The Susanoo surrounded him again, leaving the imposing image of both Megazord flying towards the sphere, which was already up to 3 times larger than at the beginning. "Naruto, how does it grow so fast? It needs a huge amount of chakra for that," he thought, and a voice in his mind confirmed the reason. "Son Goku, it's because of our chakra, or rather, because of the Jubi. The Jubi came from the God Tree, the same tree that absorbs the power of the planet to transform it into the Shinju fruit, which is why the Jubi is a force of nature. It's capable of absorbing the power of nature that exists in everyone and everything. So even the infinitely expanding space itself can be absorbed." Naruto remembered that and frowned. "That reminds me, I need to get more out of Sage Mode," he thought, recalling his first mode, which he had achieved through his own merit. Even if 6 Paths Mode is something of an evolution of Sage Mode still has more potential for evolution. For the simple fact that Sage Mode depends on the amount the user can contain. If the user contains infinite amounts, then the power will be infinite, but Sage Mode, as far as he understands, in addition to giving Gudadamas, only makes you part of nature. "Sasuke, Naruto, we have to shrink the Gudadama or make it explode right now. If it keeps growing, the explosion will destroy Kaguya's 6 universes and could reach ours." Naruto nodded. "The best way is to manipulate it so it explodes now. At most, it'll only be 2 or 4 of Kaguya's dimensions," he said, because that would be best. From what he senses, there's life in these dimensions. They're barely evolving, but they exist, and he really didn't want to do this, but there's nothing. He doesn't know how to shrink a Gudadama, and possibly if he tried, he'd only concentrate the explosion, and it would be more powerful. Accelerating the flight with Kurama's avatar, the blonde smiled to collide head-on with the gigantic rabbit creature, or rather its upper part, moving it away from Kakashi, who was deactivating the Susanoo while the Gudadama destroyed it with just a touch, disintegrating it easily. "By Jadama!" the Biju shouted as the sphere appeared in its mouth. But before it could be launched, it swallowed it, and then launched it like a relativistic ray that pierced the rabbit's face, which regenerated thanks to the compound in its body. "Lightning style, fallen flare," Naruto said from the fox's head, which opened its mouth and caused a large amount of flaming rocks to fall towards the creature, which swallowed them as if it were nothing. But that was just a distraction that the blonde made so that the fox could easily hit the creature with its gigantic tail, sending it to the ground, but even so the creature survived. Naruto clicked his teeth in annoyance. Tisk! Absorbing ninjutsu techniques won't work, and given his body's makeup, we won't be able to physically destroy his entire body. The blonde thought, annoyed. Until he turned to the gigantic Gudadamas that was already 3 times bigger than before and saw that the lower part of the creature was also affected by the gigantic Gudadama, but that had to be impossible. The Gudadama was from the creature, right? The creature is something like an uncontrolled Getameso. The Jubi does not exist in itself right now, but the Getameso must be trying to absorb even more chakra than ours. That means that the creature's chakra is not natural chakra. Naruto, thank you Koko, he said happily with the Biju. Prepared with Kurama, he took the creature and threw it at the Gudadama, causing the creature to scream, annoyed at being disintegrated. But even so, within seconds, the creature's life ceased to exist, and 9 spheres flew out. Upon falling to the ground, 9 gigantic beasts, 600 to 700 meters long, formed. One was Shikaku, the one-tailed raccoon. The second was Matatabi, the 2-tailed fire cat. The third was Isabu, the 3-tailed turtle. The fourth was Son Goku, the 4-tailed gorilla. The fifth was Saiken, the 5-tailed dolphin. Next was Koko, the 6-tailed slug, and then the 7-tailed beetle. Then came Gyuki, the 8-tailed octopus. And last but not least, Kurama, the demonic fox with the powerful 9 tails and the strongest of all the Bijus, being the older brother of all. Kurama! Naruto shouted happily to see his friend. Kurama, Naruto, put your snout down and give that Gudadama a hard time. Chapter 4. The blonde man glared at his friend angrily. Hey! I saved you, at least say thank you, he shouted, while the fox tried to hit him with his gigantic palm in response, though the blonde man easily disappeared from the scene. You know you can't hit me, Kurama. Don't even try, said the blonde, lying on the fox's head, who had gained a tick. I'm stronger than you, so I'm also the dominant one in this relationship. The fox smiled. Are you sure? Naruto was confused when the golden glow disappeared and his body returned to almost normal, since there was barely a white cape left on his back that had the extra magatamas, and his 3 black marks on each cheek remained just as intense, along with the golden eyes and a cross inside the pupil. Kurama, you still use my power, you're still strong because of me too, he said, smiling as the blonde grumbled like a child because of his fox friend's bad joke. Until a foxy grin appeared on the blonde's face, as he pointed eagerly at his friend. Just because I use your power doesn't mean I didn't defeat you in my own sage mode, he said, and all the beasts, who had been just watching everything until now, began to laugh, some louder than others. Shikaku, Kakaka! The legendary 9-tailed fox defeated by a brat with a bit of natural power. This is simply spectacular, said the tanuki, laughing like an angry madman at the fox. Looking at his blonde friend, the Biju launched one of his tails to crush the blonde, achieving his goal, crashing the boy against a mountain, destroying it. You're angry, Kurama is angry, he said mockingly to his friend, raising the fox's 300-meter-long tail. Now that I see it, you're the smallest of all, Kurama. Again, everyone started laughing even louder, causing a tick in the fur ball called Kurama to angrily open his mouth to create a Bijudama. Bijuda. Before finishing 7 tails, they tried to stop him for fear that he would blow them all up at once, erasing them from existence, although it would be for less than a year. Being in limbo while they recomposed was not very comfortable. Although only 7 thought that, since the tanuki was still laughing at everything he discovered about the fox, when he was back inside the brat he would search every part of the brat's 17 years to see what else he could humiliate his older brother with. Kurama, angry, I'm the smallest because I'm only half of myself now, idiot, my other self is inside you, said the fox angrily with the blonde, who nodded, remembering that the een part of his friend was not the most talkative, so it was easy to forget about him. Naruto, but they also lack chakra, so why do they have their original size? He asked. Son Goku, who was the calmest and most intelligent, responded. While we only gave you chakra and later more chakra was forcibly introduced, Kurama was simply divided in two beyond the amount of chakra, Dino also from reserves. Our size comes from our reserves, while by giving you chakra, we simply left an empty space in the reserves that fill up over time. Kurama's reserves were cut off, causing his size to be affected. He said, and Naruto nodded with a serious face. I understood nothing, he said, and all the bijus collided with his face. I'll explain, Naruto-chan, said Saiken, the six-tailed biju smiling, and Naruto approached the slug to listen. The size of Kurama and us depends on how much chakra fits inside, and when divided its size is adapted to the quantity, like a bowl of ramen that when it is empty, and you no longer want to fill it, and you order it to go, what happens? Asked sweetly. Naruto bumped his fist, smiling in understanding. It's emptied into a smaller container so you don't have to carry something so big, but it's mostly empty, so their bodies adjust to how much is inside. The slug smiled because the boy understood. Really? You understood with a ramen explanation? The fox shouted angrily, but then something entered his mind about his sister. And how do you know she likes ramen so much? Everyone, upon hearing the question, looked at the six-tailed slug, who smiled a little. I was watching your memories while you were fighting. I didn't have much to do, so I watched your adventures and your point of view on my former Jinchuriki, he said, and the blonde smiled. Naruto, I hope you didn't find my memory boring. I'm not that interesting. The slug smiled. It was very interesting. Apparently, Kurama was always watching what you did to see if you were a good person. Naruto was surprised when he heard that. Hey! Kurama was watching me, he said in surprise, looking at the fox who was looking away. He was about to continue arguing, but his master's voice sounded. This is all fun and games, but I think the size of that sphere is about to consume us, said Kakashi, leaning on Sakura, who was trying to heal him with the little chakra she had. Naruto looked at the sphere with doubt, but noticed that the sphere was already more than 4 times the original, leaving the Uzumaki speechless. What the hell? It was barely 3 times its size a few minutes ago. Team! If you had seen it, why didn't you warn me? The Uchiha looked at his friend from afar, unimportantly. I told you, you're the one who isn't paying attention, he said, keeping his distance. Not out of shame, but out of caution. The Kyuubi didn't have much experience with his clan's Sharingan eyes. The fact that he possessed an eternal Manjikyu and a Rinnegan didn't put him in a very good position with the creature. Naruto, well, that doesn't matter now. The question is, how are we going to save ourselves from that? He asked with a chibi face pointing at the sphere. Everyone looked at him and made a face at the blonde's way of saying it. You're the only one with good adamas here. You should be able to manipulate or absorb them. Or something like that. I explained that Goku is calm. Naruto looked doubtful and smiled. I don't know how to do it. I've never changed good adamas at will, he said, scratching his head. Everyone looked at him like he was an idiot. Kakashi and Sakura fell back because of Naruto's idiocy, and the Uchiha slammed his face against his hand because of it. Really? But you turned some good adamas into sticks to hold back Madara's limbo clone. Naruto scratched his head as he looked to the side, ignoring his partner's angry glare. I actually just nailed the ones I already had, and before Madara came, I brought them back, he said, and everyone looked at him. So the 2 good adamas who are sticks are always like this? Asked Madatabi. Naruto nodded. Every time I summon them, they're like this, he said, emphasizing that he brought the 2 boost staffs to each hand. But I can try to make them explode, he suggested, and everyone looked at him like an idiot. Sakura, Naruto, we appreciate your attempt, but if that thing explodes we'll die anyway. We have nothing to go back or save ourselves with, she said worriedly, and Naruto nodded. It wasn't his best idea today. Naruto, damn. He cursed because they had nothing left to do, or so he thought until something in his mind caused him to smile. Summoning a good adama, it began to inflate, and everyone looked at him worriedly. What are you doing, idiot? We know we're going to die from the explosion, but you don't have to do it yourself. Sakura shouted, stopping the blonde, who looked cutely confused. Huh! I'm trying to turn the sword into a sphere, so you two can enter, she said, referring to her sensei and his partner. Kakashi, that's a good idea. Only one good Adama can resist another good Adama. But what about you two? The Bijus will be reborn in 1 year on Earth due to their connection to the natural energy there. But you can't do that, can you? He asked the last question with hesitation. His 2 students had extracted so many divine abilities from him that the thought of them being immortal wasn't something that surprised him much. And that was proven when Naruto stopped to think about it for a moment. Naruto, my regeneration is almost as good as Madara's for having the Biju. That makes me almost immortal, he said, and Kakashi gave an eye smile with a drop of sweat. Really, the strongest in his world were no longer anything in front of his students. The blonde now, supposedly was capable of surviving being split, having the entire right side of his body blown off like it was nothing, and seeing that Madara only gained that ability after having all the Biju, which the blonde had, it was easily true. Now, without interruptions, the Uzumaki returned to his golden state and in an easier way, transformed the good Adama into a sphere that opened a hole to let Kakashi and Sakura enter. Which the duo did instantly, and the hole automatically began to close. If you feel like we're taking a long or short time, it's because the good Adama are a space-time itself, so for you it could easily be a few seconds or an eternity, the blonde said, smiling, and both Kakashi and Sakura broke out in a cold sweat, worried that they might die of old age inside the sphere. Naruto, don't forget to use chakra to physically move away from the walls and the floor. If you touch it directly, you will die, he said, and this time they both turned blue. They had forgotten that they could die at the simple touch of the sphere. With that, the sphere closed, and Naruto smiled. Bumping his palm into his animated fist, the blonde turned to the large sphere. Good! Let's go for it! He shouted cheerily, but a cat tail made of blue fire crushed him. Are you forgetting about us, Naruto-chan? The cat asked with a less than friendly smile. The blonde man blanked his face as he lifted the cat's 500-meter-long tail and looked at them. No offense, but you're a little fat to be in a good Adama, he said, and this time, 9 tails were going to crush him, even though he was only saved by his lightning speed. Naruto, it's just a joke, calm down. Although, to be honest, I don't think a good Adama would grow that big to fit them. And that doesn't count as an example, he said, and the Bijus looked at him seriously. It was the second time they had called him fat in his existence, and they were already very angry. Sasuke suddenly appeared next to the blonde, who looked at him with a smile. The best thing to do is let them enter you, at least until we find a solution, said the serious Uchiha. The Uchiha's tone annoyed Kurama, more so because he was an Uchiha, which only made him hate the boy more. Look how you talk to me, Uchiha! If you don't want me to claw your eyes out, he said angrily. The Uchiha frowned angrily at the creature's threat. He was about to respond with a threat, but simply sighed to calm himself. I'm sorry, he said, crossing his arms and looking away. Naruto stared blankly. Did Sasuke just say sorry? The same Sasuke who was proud, self-centered, and his rival in everything had just said sorry instead of throwing a meteor at the fox or creating a meteor from scratch and trapping the fox inside just to prove his superiority. Naruto started touching his whole body worriedly, and even pinched himself, making everyone look at him like an idiot. Now that you're feeling like a brat, are you crazy yet? Naruto denied what the Eight Tails said. As Sasuke apologized, clearly this is the infinite Tsukuyami and I didn't realize it, he said, running in circles worried, and the Uchiha gained tics of anger. Even trying to be nice, the Uzumaki managed to make him angry. Sasuke, quit the game now, he said, hitting the blonde, making him smile. You're back to normal now, he said, raising a thumb, and Sasuke's sweat dropped. Now then, come in. I'll endure this pain for you, so don't hesitate. Arg! The blonde growled as if in unison, the 9 beasts entered the Uzumaki's stomach circle, releasing energy into the process. Ugh! At least they could come one by one, he thought, pained, wondering why so much chakra at once would destabilize his chakra conduits for a few minutes. Sasuke, stop the drama, we should detonate that thing right now. At this size, no dimension of Kaguya will be safe, not even Kakashi's Kaguya is far enough away to be saved. Naruto understood. If all the dimensions that were beginning to have life were already doomed, it was best to save the lives of his own universe. Fine, what I'll do is detonate this. I hope our immunity to the Gudadama works with the explosion. The blonde whispered, flying up to the sphere, slowly placing his hands on the dome. The Uchiha kicked it, causing it to open, scaring the blonde, who backed away, worried. What are you doing, team? I could have died, he said, and the Uchiha smiled. Gudadamas are Gudadamas, you're immune to all of them, so just blow that up already. The blonde snorted, annoyed by his almost brother's order, as he once again placed his hands on the sphere and concentrated. Okay, I connect to the sphere, I connect my chakra to it, and now how do I explode it? Koko, I'll help you, Naruchan. Just make the chakra accumulated inside the sphere be expelled in a violent way and the Gudadama will explode too. That's how we explode our Baijadamas from a distance, said the six-tailed slug calmly while she seemed to be dazed or sleepy, something that seemed strange to the Uzumaki, but it was a matter for later. Naruto smiled at the help, and doing as requested, the Uchiha felt a tremor inside the entire planet and prepared himself. Good, I just hope that I am immune to all types of Gudadama, he thought now, because although he touched Naruto's and Madara's, he didn't know if Kaguya's or the Jubi's had a different effect. Before any event, the Gudadama without warning exploded in a less violent way as everything began to disintegrate due to the great light of the explosion. Naruto, who was holding the Gudadama, smiled as he gave his own chakra when the explosion was faster but equally powerful, causing everything to be destroyed in a final ace of light. Chapter 5. We find ourselves in a void, the void of the universe that was left over from the explosion of the Gudadama created by Kaguya or the Jubi. Although that doesn't matter right now, what mattered was the blonde Naruto Uzumaki in his base state floating aimlessly through the universe. Sasuke by his side, apparently tired since, despite being awake, he didn't move. Naruto, Sasuke, are you alive? He asked jokingly while poking his almost brother's cheek, who rolled his eyes. Yes, Naruto, I'm alive, he said in pain. They never considered the possibility that the explosion itself could harm them, since although they are immune to Gudadama, the explosion is something different and just as powerful. They only survived because of their stronger form. Okay, now we need to go find Sakura and Kakashi-sensei. Remember, if I stray too far from the Gudadama, I'll temporarily lose control over them, he said, trying to move as if he were swimming. Try infusing the Gudadama with wind release from here, so they'll have oxygen for a few minutes until we find them, the Uchiha said, sighing to try to ward off the pain. The pain from the explosion of that supermax Gudadama was truly nothing to sneeze at, and Madara's blows didn't compare to it. And Madara was a man capable of covering the entire map with meteorites as if it were an everyday thing, summoning three-dimensional clones that are not affected by beings from this space, and even the man, for what was said, could compare the power of Rikudo Sannin himself, who could easily create moons. Naruto sighed as he concentrated. The distance to the Gudadama is about 12 minutes away at a normal pace. The problem will be how to get there, though. I can't access 6 paths mode with Kurama right now, the blonde said as he tried to swim in the emptiness of space, as he could breathe thanks to the power of the sage. The Uchiha looked at this seriously, as was normal in the clearing. We can propel ourselves with some jutsu, the wind ones would do at this point, he said, annoyed because he had never learned any wind techniques with his Sharingan, only Danzo's air bullet and infusing shuriken into wind, and they weren't very useful now. The one that threw a strong breeze would be very useful at this point. Naruto. I don't have one to propel us. The Rasen shuriken isn't the best for that, although you think I could try something with a Rasengan? He suggested calmly. He wasn't sure of anything, but experimenting in the midst of necessity was always his best option. The Uchiha sighed at having to accept a non-viable option, but it was the best and only thing he had. Take my hand, team. The Uchiha growled angrily at the proposal. No way, double-cross, find another way, he said angrily. He wanted to redeem himself, but that didn't mean he'd take a boy's hand for that. He was too gay, more so than living with Orochimaru. Naruto rolled his eyes. Really? You don't care, grab my hand when Obito was going to kill you, team, he said, annoyed because the Uchiha only did that when it suited him. But it's okay, If you don't want to hold my hand, grab Kurama's," he said, creating a Rasengan that began to spin like the rotation of a planet, while a golden claw came out of his back and grabbed Sasuke's hand. Then, when the Rasengan reached a high rotation speed, it shot out like a lightning bolt that instantly propelled them to high speed. The Uchiha frowned in doubt. He created this version of the Rasengan right now. How can this doppelganger create variants so easily? He wondered, a little surprised by his friend's quality. It was something he wouldn't say out loud, but it truly was a powerful ability his friend had, and one that earned his respect. Suddenly, both of them collided with the giant black sphere that was the Gudadama. Naruto grunted from the impact while Sasuke just huffed. Although he was actually hiding the pain from the crash, today certainly wasn't his lucky day. "Naruto, I think I've already broken the same rib 5 times. The boy began to laugh under the Uchiha's watchful gaze, who just stood still. "You idiot dobe, open the Gudadama now. They've probably both died of old age," the Uchiha said, not expecting that to be the case. Naruto's face went pale. He'd forgotten about the Gudadama's ability. He should have deactivated the space-time and disintegration abilities. Madara and Obito did it. He should be able to do it. "Okay, disperse," he whispered, making a seal. It wouldn't be necessary if he was at his strongest, but now it wasn't possible. When the boy said that, the dome created an opening, where Kakashi's head popped out, looking around worriedly. "Are I done? We barely got in here," Kakashi said in amazement. Naruto smiled. "Well, at least I know this Gudadama makes time pass slower. Now I'll have to figure out how to recognize it for later," he said, looking at the Gudadama. It didn't seem important now, but later he'd need to hide someone else inside, and possibly then he'd put them in a Gudadama that speeds up time. "Sasuke, leave that for later, dope. We should find something to get out of here," he said, because they had already survived. Now it was time to escape from this space-time without life or matter itself. Naruto crossed his arms, thinking. "I'm connected to my father's seals," he proposed calmly. "Kakashi, that's not a bad idea. Minato-sensei's seals are interdimensional. That's enough to cross these universes," said the Hitaki. Although Naruto then denied it. "Although for that I need him to accept the signal, which I doubt he will do at this distance." Everyone sighed because the only option was no longer an option. "The sage would teleport us when we use these seals, but without Kaguya we can't use the Yin and Yang seals," Naruto said, looking at his Yang seal and the Uchiha at his side. Sasuke looked at his crescent moon seal, which was the Yin seal, and nodded. "Kakashi-sensei, where is Sakura?" he asked, looking inside the Gudadama, where a fainted Sakura was resting on Kakashi's back. The Hitaki looked at his sleeping student. "She fell asleep as soon as she came in. The lack of adrenaline from the battle made her body give in to exhaustion. Fighting for 2 days is too much for her," he said, smiling the way he usually did with his eyes, something strange but tender. Naruto nodded. "I need a shower and a good night's sleep too. I'm only awake because I'm keeping Kurama's chakra circulating like a substitute adrenaline rush. But that won't last forever. I'd better get a solution quickly, or I'll fall asleep." Kakashi nodded and began to think, though he could honestly say that nothing would enter his mind. He didn't know any jutsu capable of teleporting him universes away, only his sensei's Hiration and the Kamui of obituaries. "I know! Although Kamui's dimension may be destroyed, we can travel from there to the element nations." "I know," he said, because it was the best option. Even with the dimension destroyed, he could still do what Obito did and open up space and search for other dimensions until he reached the element nations. "It's the best option, no. It's the only option." "Okay, try it, Kakashi." The Hitaki closed his eyes for a short period of time. When opening his eyes, he showed Obito's Manjikyu Sharingan, which began to open the space. In an instant, everyone was sucked in along with the Gudadama, leaving the emptiness of the universe, as it is. A void. Elsewhere / Kamui's dimension. Naruto, along with Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura, could be seen appearing on top of several cubes of different sizes and shapes, all of them comparable in size to a house. "Well, it seems there's still a small part of Kamui left," Kakashi said, looking at the dimension, which in the distance had a void created by the Gudadama. The explosion was so huge that it reached here, something that should have been impossible since it was a separate dimension. But he'd seen so many impossible things that this was the most possible of all today. Yawn. Naruto, Kakashi-sensei, since we're safe now, I'll go to sleep, he said, yawning again as he fell asleep, leaving the other two there. They were both still awake for the same reason Naruto wasn't sleeping before, keeping chakra circulating like adrenaline. But at least two of them had to stay awake to return to the element nations, so both of them were more than enough. With Naruto asleep, the Gudadama disappeared, leaving Kakashi and Sasuke awake with Naruto and Sakura asleep. Now that the two of them were more serious, Sasuke looked at Kakashi. So what do we do now? The Hatake sighed. Go back, he said, trying to steer away from the topic he knew the Uchiha wanted to bring up. At the attempt to divert the topic, the Uchiha growled. Don't act stupid, we both know what I mean, he said, and Kakashi simply placed the bandana over his left eye. They're all dead. The only ones who should be waiting for us in the element nations are those revived by Ito Tensei and Hagoromo. We have nothing else to do, Sasuke. It's best to go to the element nations and live our lives. Even if it's in solitude, he said, because it really was the only option. Since not even repopulating the planet would work, the planet, being technically dead, would explode in 1 or 2 months, and with the beasts, 6 months at the most. Sasuke, it's not the only option. At least not the best option. Kakashi looked at his formerly renegade student with doubt. What do you mean? Although I can't hear, while we were in Kaguya's dimensions I noticed something. Life there reproduced very quickly. The races seemed to evolve at a speed that even we couldn't. It's possibly because time passes differently in each space-time, so it doesn't matter, he said, because the main topic had strayed. But the important thing is that Naruto and I can sense life in Kaguya's dimensions. That raises the possibility that there is life beyond our solar system in our own universe. Kakashi thought for a moment and sighed. It was the only and best option for them to live. He knew that if they lived on their dead planet, Naruto and Sakura would be eternally depressed if they died along with the planet from its explosion. Kakashi, if it's for the best, then Naruto and Sakura will live happily, he said, nodding to the idea. At that moment, Sasuke and Kakashi watched as Naruto opened his eyes with a loud yawn, apparently waking up from his sleep. Dobe, it's only been 5 minutes. Don't tell me you're already asleep? Naruto, who was still stretching, nodded. Yes. I slept for 10 hours according to Kurama, he said calmly. The other two men looked at him like he was an idiot. It's only been 5 minutes. What, 10 hours? Kakashi asked doubtfully. Some kind of divine ability that makes sleep come faster wouldn't surprise him at all. Naruto, hee. It's just that I'm smart. Before falling asleep I entered my mental space. Their time is faster, so 5 minutes out without almost 10 hours in, he said, because it was his best idea so far, although it only rested his mind. His physique was fine, he didn't need to sleep to rest his muscles since Kurama and the Biju in general help his muscles rest with their chakra. Kakashi, it was a good idea, Naruto, he said with his eye smile. Perry, don't worry, you can sleep all you want. I need a few more seconds of rest before using Kamui again, even if Manjikyu doesn't consume chakra because it's a type of spiritual Manjikyu. Kamui still puts too much pressure on my eyes without consuming much energy. Sasuke nodded. He knew what that was. He barely consumed any chakra because of his eternal Manjikyu, but there was still too much strain on his eyes from the skill itself and the precision the eye required. Naruto, I'm not sleepy, Kakashi-sensei. Besides, I barely get married beyond the mental. My chakra recovers super fast thanks to the beasts, and my body is healed by my Uzumaki bloodline and the beasts. Naruto simply lay on the floor, arms behind his head, serving as substitute pillows. So, we should decide what to do when we get back, right? He asked, calmer than Kakashi would have thought. It seemed he underestimated Naruto's maturity in this matter of destroying his planet and all life. Kakashi, Sasuke and I talked about it while you were sleeping. We agreed that when we return, One of you should feel alive or something similar to go live in a society equal to or more advanced than ours, with an appearance we can more or less imitate," he said, arms crossed. Naruto nodded and thought about it. "It's a good idea, but if they don't have chakra, Sasuke won't be able to sense them. We sense life in Kaguya's dimension because, being a universe born of chakra, life within it wouldn't have chakra either. But our own universe is natural and doesn't have chakra, so possibly other life doesn't have chakra." "Phew! Another problem. We hadn't considered that possibility," he said, annoyed because another problem had arisen just when they thought they'd solved the last one. "Naruto, but," he said, getting Kakashi's attention, "my six-path sage mode doesn't just sense chakra, but life itself. So I could easily find life," he said with a proud tone. Kakashi smiled, hearing his student's words, a comical bead of sweat dripping from his face. "If you could do it, why mention that Sasuke couldn't?" he thought. His students were always looking for something to throw in their faces, and now that they're practically gods, the best thing they could throw in their faces were those ultra-divine abilities. Sasuke just snorted, paying no attention to the blonde's humiliated but direct hint about his ability to feel more than him. "That's no longer the point. It's better to go back and not keep the Rikudo-san in waiting. Maybe he already thought we died from the Gudadama's explosion. Sure, if his divine abilities don't allow him to sense us here," Kakashi whispered. Though he wouldn't admit it, he was actually jealous of his students' ultra-powerful abilities, even though he felt proud. It still made him a little envious to know that his students could kill him with a glance or the flick of a finger, literally. "Kakashi, let's go back," he said to take Sakura from his back and give her to Sasuke, who seemed to blush a little when he took her in his arms, or was it just his imagination? "Good. Kamui." Elsewhere/Nations elements. A vortex appeared, releasing Naruto, Sasuke with Sakura, and Kakashi, who sat on the ground. "Even without any wear and tear, I myself am almost out of chakra from using it all up in the war," he thought as he unnecessarily covered his left eye again. Naruto looked around, seeing familiar faces. "Sasuke, Kakashi-sensei, we have a meeting," he said, and both men looked at him. Turning around, the trio found themselves inside a super-wide mini crater where a seal adorned the ground that was apparently created by the Hokages, the most powerful shinobi, after Naruto and Sasuke, that the world had ever known in each era. "Naruto, old man with the face of the second, you're still alive." The white-haired man frowned at the boy as he stood with his arms crossed. "Stupid brat," he whispered angrily. Beside him, a man with long, dark hair smiled at the other man with white hair. "Calm down, Tobirama. It's just a little joke from the kid," he said to his brother. This man, who was wearing crimson armor with the headband of the Konoha village, was named Hashirama Senju, the Kami no Shinobi. "Naruto. It's not for nothing." "But why the seal?" he asked, looking at the seal closely. He'd say it was new to him, and he didn't understand anything. But after gaining his new powers, ninjutsu seemed like an elementary school lesson that his mind understood like nothing. Any ninjutsu was a technique he could use, or at least understand and analyze instantly. "This is a seal we were planning to use to bring them back. The plan was to bring some souls from the other world to help us, but after the presence of my children entered you, it was no longer necessary to bring souls," said the sage of the six paths, or Rikudo-sanin. The man had brown hair with two horns on his forehead and a white yukata adorned with magatama, or tomo. The lower part of his body was like a ghost emerging from the lower part of a body split in half, while a staff with a crescent moon and sun adorned it on each part. "It was a very difficult thing to do, considering that our chakra, even though it's infinite, his chakra signature was very far from here," said an old man in black armor. This was Hiruzen Sarutobi, better known as the second Kami no Shinobi, or the Professor. He got this nickname for knowing every elemental and non-elemental jutsu in his village. Naruto stared at the seal in surprise. "Interesting, activate it," the blonde suggested suddenly. All the revived Kages stared at him like he was crazy. "That's unnecessary, brat. You're already here," said the blue-armored, white-haired man named Tobirama Senju, better known as the best water element expert in all of history. Naruto smiled. Activate it. I want to feel what teleportation feels like with 6 paths Sage mode, he said, covering himself in his golden power and transitioning into his 6 paths form. Everyone looked at them. When, shrugging, both Naruto and Sasuke disappeared from their previous positions and were now in the center of the gigantic seal. Wow! That was amazing! Naruto shouted, amazed at feeling that. Sasuke, at his side, just crossed his arms. When the teleportation wasn't sudden and you could sense it in detail, it was truly something out of this world. Why are you so happy, Naruto? Kakashi asked, doubting his students, and even if it was repetitive, he would say it. It must be something of his supreme god techniques, as always a privilege of the blonde due to his power. Naruto looked at his sensei. That's incredible, sensei! It's like they took me apart at an atomic level and opened a space-time rift where time doesn't circulate, and when I get out of that rift, they technically rebuild me again at an atomic level, he said happily, and his sensei nodded with a drop, as he predicted. It had to do with his new power. Sasuke, in short, instantaneous space-time teleportation. He said because it wasn't a new technique in his world, although it was new to be able to describe it 100% as Naruto did with his 6 paths mode. Far from it. A blonde man named Minato Namikaze, very similar in appearance to Naruto, sweat dropped at the sight of his son's excitement. He's so similar to Kushina when she explains how Fuinjutsu works, he said, a little nervous about his son and his mother's beastly familiar. Apparently, that thing about if you take out the appearance of one, you'll have the attitude of the other's real. Naruto, Dad. This stuff feels better than Hiraishin even. You should try it. Minato was embarrassed by the blonde's shout. Don't worry, I'm fine, son, he replied more calmly. The yellow lightning bolt. The fastest ninja, or formerly the fastest in the world. Since the blonde stole that position with his current powers. Sasuke smacked his friend on the head to get him to stop with the nonsense. Though that earned him a "Hey!" from the blonde Uzumaki. Stop with the nonsense, now's not the time. Rikudo Sannin, Uchiha Sasuke is right. The best thing for now is to know what will happen to you. Naruto looked to his sensei and companion Lara, wondering who would tell the sage about his idea of going to another planet. Taking a step forward, Naruto decided to do the same. We've thought about it, and decided we'll go to another planet. Chapter 6. Rikudo Sannin, That's different. Naruto smiled, scratching his head. We think it's best now, Tabeo, he said, looking at his sensei and almost brother. There's nothing left to fight or live for here. So finding a new world is the best thing for now. The sage of the 6 paths looked at this with understanding. I understand. My mother wiped out our life, so living here makes no sense. Especially when the planet itself is about to be destroyed. Kakashi, while there's still a problem, lives are different on different planets. Also, each life is accustomed to a different environment. I understand what you're trying to get at. Your current problem is that the planet you're going to might be strange because you're physically different, and the environment might not be favorable and could lead to your death, the sage said, looking at the Hatake. Kakashi nodded. Exactly. The problem is finding a place where we can go unnoticed. Naruto and Sasuke said that no other planet has inhabitants with chakra. So the only thing we can do is go to one without chakra but that has a favorable and easy hiding place. Hagoromo nodded. It will be difficult for you to find a good planet since the space-time techniques you possess have a great limitation, he said, looking at Kakashi and, strangely, at Sasuke. So I hired you to find a favorable planet. It will take a few months, but I will make sure it is a good place. Naruto, thank you, old Rikudo Tabeo, he said happily to the spectral man. Hagoromo smiled at the boy's smile, whose attitude was too similar to his son's. And it was obvious, after all, he was his best and possibly last incarnation. Before I go, I want to ask you one last time, Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha. Don't you wish to change your mind? Both boys became serious, and Naruto was the first to speak, nodding. Yes. There's nothing to live here anymore, so being Hokage and protecting everyone is impossible. Although, I still intend to protect those I have left to Bayo," he said, looking at his friends with a smile, while in the distance, Minato smiled at his son's conviction and how determined he is when he sets his mind to something. "He's just like you, sensei," the old man said to Hashirama, who smiled. "Hashirama, we're incarnations of the same person, of course I'd come up with something of mine," he said proudly, knowing that on a spiritual level he's something like the same person as the brat, and possibly thousands of his ancestors. Which is strange because he said he was something like his own grandfather or great-grandfather, but he left it aside at a certain point. "And you, Uchiha Sasuke?" "Sasuke, yes, there is no planet or life left. So a global change is impossible, my revolution is cancelled. For now, I'll just follow the dobe," he said, crossing his arms without interest. All the dead Hokages looked seriously at the Uchiha because he just admitted that he was going to betray them again. Kakashi looked seriously at the Uchiha because he didn't think the boy would really continue with those ideas of harming Konoha. "Naruto, good for you Tabeyo," said Naruto, supporting his forearm on Sasuke, who remained arms crossed. Everyone's sweat dropped at the blonde's reaction to the Uchiha's words. "Are you serious, Naruto?" Kakashi whispered, shaking his head. Naruto was confused by everyone's looks. "What? Tabeyo isn't going to do it anymore. There's no need to fight," he said, and everyone agreed with him. It was stupid to fight over something that wouldn't happen anyway. "Besides, I knew it, Tabeyo. It's impossible for Team to do something without me noticing. We're almost brothers, after all," he said, proud of having known about this whole plan for a long time. "If you say so." Kakashi just sighed, still holding Sakura on his shoulder. The girl had taken a nice nap, something the three men and even the dead probably wanted to do right now. Fighting for 2 days was not very favorable, less when the break was less than 2 minutes and possibly interrupted by a surprise attack from the enemy that could change its essence and appearance to that of an ally with nothing to differentiate it. Hagoromo nodded at the Uchiha's statement and smiled. "It's time to go, but first I'll undo the Edo Tensei technique for you," he said, hitting the bow staff in his hand, causing the paper body to fall apart, dropping the body of a white Setsu while the souls of the 4 Hokages flew into the sky. Naruto looked at his father from afar and raised his hand to greet him. Minato tried to do the same, but because he didn't have both hands, the blonde soul failed to say goodbye, but only laughed at the situation. Naruto also burst out laughing at his father's mistake. Meanwhile, the other Hokage stared at the boy in whom, without telling him, they had their utmost trust. "Hey brat, since you're descended from my brother, I'm forcing you to learn my water techniques. Apparently you have potential with them," the 7 said, arms crossed, giving a confident smile to the blonde, who gave him a thumbs up. Of course, an old man with the second's face. The second just smiled. After all, he ended up liking the nickname. "Kid! Learn the wood techniques, they're the best. They can also cure with pollen, I recommend them," Hashirama shouted almost to the sky, seeming to swim to avoid the clouds. Naruto laughed at the former's attempt to not leave before saying that. "Of course, I'll also learn my dad's technique along the way, it's the best after all," he shouted, surprising his father, but then he smiled with tears in his eyes. Both Minato and Hiruzen and the 2 Senju brothers disappeared into the clouds while their brightness for being a soul disappeared, leaving it said that they had already gone to the other world. Hagoromo now looked at the 2 boys, incarnations of his children. "Well, I'll come any moment to tell you about your new home. Be ready," he said as he disappeared. "Naruto, wait. And how will we get there? Kakashi-sensei's Kamui won't be able to go very far if he doesn't know where he's going," said the Uzumaki with great confusion. "Sasuke has a space-time ability in his Rinnegan. With that ability they could travel anywhere without any problem," he said, and Naruto looked at the Uchiha who, although he didn't seem surprised, he was very surprised. Naruto. "Hey, that's not fair," said Naruto looking at the Uchiha. "Now he has a space-time ability and the 6 paths, and why can't I have something that cool?" he said, crossing his arms. "Sasuke, because you have the Dobe Gudadamas, be satisfied with them and that's it," said the Uchiha angrily, making Naruto frown. "Naruto, force me fear," The two boys stared at each other, while Hagoromo just smiled. They were identical to his sons. These two were possibly the transmigrants who most resembled his sons. "Stop fighting, I'll fix this," said the wise man. "Even though I can't give you a space-time technique, at least Madara's limbo clones are more than enough to make up for it," he said to Naruto, who was surprised then pleased. "That's it," he said smiling. Sasuke just snorted in annoyance. "And you Uchiha Sasuke, I can give you a good Adama to even things up with Naruto Uzumaki." With that, one of the good Adama spheres behind Hagoromo moved towards the Uchiha. "You won't be able to manipulate it, so I'll give it a permanent physical form. You also won't be able to make it explode because it doesn't have the 6 paths mode, but you will be able to levitate it towards you with a limited distance required." Sasuke nodded. When the good Adama turned into a sword with a design he knew. "Kusanagi," he thought, seeing that it was identical to the shape of his sword, a copy of the real Kusanagi, a sword capable of cutting everything and extending infinitely. Although it may not be able to lengthen, it could cut everything, and with its power to disintegrate matter and damage the soul, it was 1,000 times better than his old sword. "Sasuke, thank you," said Sirios, taking the good Adama in his hand, making it fuse with him and disappear. Naruto looked at this in surprise and now looked at the sage of the 6 paths. "Now it's me, he said happily. The Rikudo Sannin looked at the young man with a smile at his enthusiasm. "You already have it, Naruto. No interaction is necessary to give you that power," he said, and Naruto smiled. "Naruto, thanks to Bayo," he said happily. Hagoromo nodded in thanks and began to slowly disappear. "Aren't you planning on taking the marks of the sun and moon?" Naruto asked, showing his sun mark that still remained. "It's not necessary. I was thinking about doing it, but seeing how they are, keeping them would help more so that they are with me in the other world," he said as he finished disappearing, leaving behind the lower half that belonged to Uchiha Madara when he died. The parts slowly faded into smoke as the 3 boys, now alone, looked at each other. "What will we do now? The old sage probably won't return for days or months," Naruto said doubtfully as he walked alongside Sasuke toward his sensei. "Kakashi, I think trying to survive here is the best, although returning to Konoha is not the best," he said looking at Sakura. He already knew that Naruto could handle it, and it's not to belittle his student but clearly the girl, even if she was pretending. Seeing all the corpses and people transformed into white setsus would destroy her. Naruto understood and nodded. "We can go to the Forest of Death. There's a chance there's food since the animals don't have chakra and are mutants. It wouldn't be surprising if some survived, given their genjutsu-proof glass eyes," he said, remembering that fact. "Sasuke, we must also learn techniques and jutsu in this period of time. We don't know what will be on that planet we go to," he said seriously because he knew there would be danger. After all, where there is power there is intelligence or technology, and all 3 things are dangerous if taken to a certain point. "Kakashi-sensei, is he taking us?" Naruto asked the man with his eyes closed. This confused the duo of boys who stared at him for a while. Elsewhere, you could see Kakashi as a child next to Obito as Hatake, with the Mangekyou in his eyes, staring at his friend. "You're not leaving now?" he said dejectedly. Obito smiled to calm his friend. "Yes, Rin and Kushina must be waiting. Sensei is probably there too, so I should go, but don't worry. I'll let you have my eyes. That way, you can protect your students, even when it's mostly the opposite," he said, eliciting a smile from the Hatake, admitting that his students had surpassed them in almost every way. "Thanks, Obito," he said, opening his eyes again to see Naruto and Sasuke staring at his face in surprise. "Kakashi-sensei, were you asleep and standing up at the same time?" the blonde asked, confused. The Hatake scratched his head in embarrassment at the looks his students were giving him. "Is that even possible?" he asked, trying to divert the topic. "What's going on?" Naruto remembered what he'd said before staring at the Hatake. "It's to go to the Forest of Death and rest there. It's the place with the best chance of finding food and shelter, and we'll be able to gather things from the village faster." Kakashi-sensei nodded. When he opened his eyes with the Mangekyou Sharingan active, "Kamui!" he whispered, being sucked in alongside his students. Elsewhere, the four shinobi could be seen emerging from the whirlpool caused by the Kamui. "This is as far as I go," Kakashi said as the Manjiki deactivated, leaving the man exhausted from the large amount of chakra he'd expended in the past 2 days. Naruto gave his sensei a thumbs up. "Calm down, Kakashi-sensei, we'll take care of everything," he said, leaving the man to lean against a tree and leaving Sakura to sleep by his side. The blonde now looked at the Uchiha, who seemed to be searching for something with his eyes. "Team, we should set up camp," he said, and the Uchiha nodded, still staring at a certain position. "What are you looking at?" he asked, looking at the spot the Uchiha was watching so intently. Seeing what was in that direction, Naruto was surprised. "Isn't that the bear you fainted in the Chunin exams 4 years ago? When you were 13? Naruto asked, looking at a colossal bear, apparently a grizzly or brown bear, the blonde didn't know well. "Yes," said the Uchiha, looking at the bear. "It's a good thing he survived, now he can be our symbol," said the Uchiha as his hand became wrapped in lightning and a lightning sword formed, emerging from his palm. "Chidori Aizen," he said as he disappeared into the distance, leaving behind a simple tree leaf. "Is this what life will be like for the next few months? Surviving for no reason?" Naruto thought, staring at the bloodstain left by the bear when he was decapitated, leaving no chance of avoiding the Uchiha. 2 months later. "I did it!" shouted the Uzumaki as he ran towards his team who were waiting for him in the middle of a bonfire while in a tree over 30 meters high there was a very well-made wooden house with a balcony where anyone could look around. Kakashi, who had a new outfit that looked a bit like his usual one, looked at the Uzumaki in amazement. "You did it!" asked the Hatake, amazed since what the blonde had achieved was practically no easy feat. "Naruto, yes. I was able to separate the abilities of the good Adamas. Now I can make them lose that quality of a space-time within," he said, surprising the Hatake. "Also, that they don't damage the soul or disintegrate matter to zero," he said, proud of his achievement, which neither Madara nor death could fully achieve. "Although it's difficult to do, in a battle it would mean letting your guard down. But I'll master it enough to avoid any difficulties," he said proudly with a Gaudadama in hand. Sakura, who had a new outfit and hairstyle, looked at the Gudadama in amazement. "That's amazing, Naruto! Now you won't have to kill someone by mistake." Hareno smiled. Her new outfit and hairstyle consisted of a sleeveless red shirt with a black belt around the waist, short black pants with her shinobi gear on the back. She wore black gloves, dull gray knee pads, and black shinobi sandals. "Naruto, yes. Now it won't be necessary to kill someone to deactivate a jutsu," he said, smiling at that, while Sasuke remembered his clone being disintegrated by Naruto for stopping a fireball with a Gudadama. The Uchiha also had a new, not-so-different outfit. It was simply a change of hairstyle, with a lock of hair covering the Supreme Rinnegan eye, which, even when deactivated, left the common Rinnegan in place, and that's why the Uchiha blocked it with his hair. He also wore a black cloak along with black pants with high shinobi sandals that met the pants. The shirt, hidden from view by the cloak, was black and high-necked, as was standard for his emo Uchiha attire. Naruto also had a new uniform for his larger body, which consisted of an orange shirt with a black top that went down the sleeves, leaving the sleeves orange and black. The pants were black with orange sides and connected to shinobi sandals that were higher than the previous ones, while his ninja gear was on the side of his right foot. "Sasuke, that's good, but don't forget your training with the rest. You must learn the techniques that the Hokages asked you for and also the Kekkai Genkai of the Bijus," said the Uchiha, and Naruto just snorted with his arms crossed. "Naruto, don't worry, the clones will do it for me. Sage Mode's ability to understand and analyze every part of a ninjutsu gives me a great advantage in this area. I've also already mastered the release of magnet, steam, ink, coral, golden glow, and I'm about to master the fire of Matatabi and the lava of Son Goku," he said, smiling because these 2 months were very useful for his clones and him. "Sasuke, just watch out, make sure they continue like this," said the Uchiha calmly as he took some meat from the fire and ate it calmly. His own clones had learned most of the Rinnegan techniques, and he even unlocked his Rinnegan's innate technique, which every user possesses, his space-time technique, which allows him to open portals to anywhere he wants. Even places he's not familiar with, though it's dangerous because he could appear in a very high place and fall into a trap, or even into space. Naruto, now that you mention it, I haven't trained in Madara's limbo technique. I didn't even remember it being in my arsenal, he said, amused by that. Madara's limbo technique, which involves sending copies of yourself to a higher dimension, giving you the ability to not be affected by your own space-time but still cause harm to others, was something that would give anyone a game over for not having a way to defend themselves. Kakashi, I haven't trained Kamui either, but I do have the ability to infuse its spatial manipulation into different jutsu. While the Kamui swords were easy, possibly moving it to something beyond my Raikiri would be difficult, said the Hatake, remembering that he could pass the ability to get into the Kamui space to his jutsu, although it should take him months or years to do it well. That his Raikiri or Chidori has it is more than enough. Sakura, everyone is talking about signature techniques, but no one has mentioned the medical jutsus I asked for a month ago, said the Pinkette. She told her classmates and sensei to learn level 1, 2, and 3 of the healing jutsu so they could treat their own wounds when she wasn't around, but apparently no one besides Sasuke even made it past level 1. Naruto, I don't know why you want me to learn healing techniques. I can do it just fine with Kurama's chakra and the Yin seal, he said calmly with his hands behind his head. I can be intangible, being damaged is almost impossible, so just knowing level 2 is enough, said the Hatake, reading an orange book in a hammock they built a few months ago with 3 others. Naruto sat calmly as he gathered energy very easily. Even in this almost dead world, he could regenerate energy from space because it was part of the nature of everything that exists. After finishing collecting energy, he let out a tired sigh, as the transformation continued below. He still hasn't returned, he said, bored. Sakura looked at him doubtfully. Naruto, it's not easy to get an ideal planet like ours. Besides, you won't be able to sense it with that mode. Remember, you can't sense a natural energy user, even if they seem to be one with the environment and all, the Pinkette said as she calmly prepared something. Naruto, seeing the recipe book the girl was holding, turned green. Naruto, are you making pills? I asked, recognizing the purple ball in the picture in the book. Sakura, yes. These pills are for naturally increasing chakra production, she said, noticing her friend's gaze. Don't get so worked up, these aren't the same ones I gave you that day. These are a recipe Shizen modified to make them taste better, he said, and Naruto sighed. Naruto, I don't even want to eat that again, he thought, frightened by the memory of the poisonous taste of those things. Even though it was medicine, he could say with greater certainty that the poison he tasted while inside a snake was 1,000 times better. Naruto stopped playing and looked up at the sky. When will you come back, old Rikudo? He asked, because even though it was small, there was still a chance that there wasn't an ideal planet in the universe for them. After all, nothing in the universe is 100%. Chapter 7. We find ourselves in the now uninhabited Konoha, which in addition to being full of cocoons where the corpses of thousands of people were, there were also some abnormally gigantic roots, where these white cocoons hung. Along the way, Naruto and Sasuke were walking towards the largest building that was at the end of the main road, literally at the farthest part of the village, this being the Hokage's office. Both boys were looking for some techniques because the Uchiha wanted to look for rock element techniques, an element that both could manipulate, but only the Uchiha was deeply interested in the technique. Since the Uchiha wanted the greatest variety of techniques possible in the 6 natural elements, while Naruto preferred simple defensive attacks of this element, and a few offensive and defensive attacks of water, and then used the others such as fire, lightning and wind on offense. Naruto, team, remember why I'm coming with you, said Naruto angrily as he jumped over a giant vine and began to walk vertically along it, defying the laws of gravity like any ninja would do. Yo Uchiha, who was flying on an abnormally large eagle, snorted in annoyance. This is the 5th time you've asked, Dobe. You're coming with me to find some wind techniques, since you don't want to travel to the land of wind for techniques, Yo Uchiha said angrily, sitting on his summoning eagle. Naruto, I never said I didn't want to go to the land of wind. I said going today was stupid. At my base state, at a speed of 5 times the speed of sound, I'd be traveling 1.5 kilometers every second, which would ensure I could cross it in about a full day, round trip. He said this because his calculations told him it would take a long time, and that was if he only counted running non-stop, and even though he could do it, he still didn't count the village's hardships or the sand creatures, which Sakura said were dangerous. Both boys arrived at the Hokage Tower, where, breaking through the top, they both went down to the office and waited. There was nothing important there except for paperwork and the occasional document requesting their execution, which didn't surprise them. One was hated by the creature inside his chest from birth that had devastated everything that very day, and the other became a renegade who for a few days wanted to destroy the village. Naruto took several documents and began to read them doubtfully. Many of these requests come from Ino, Shikamaru, and even Rock Lee. It seems that since you declared yourself an enemy of the village, they would have killed you on sight, Naruto said, looking at some papers where most of his execution documents were from over 4 years ago, when they still hated him and didn't love him like now for saving the village. I don't know if I should be surprised by the requests, or that these things are from 4 years ago and aren't signed in any way, either accepting them nor denying them. Sasuke, it seems that the Hokage wasn't doing her job very well, he said, looking at some papers where a request from Naruto himself 2 years ago to do an urgent mission to capture him, since at that time it was where Orochimaru, his sensei, could already use his body change technique to steal his body and obtain his eyes. Naruto, there's nothing here, let's go through the 5th door on the right, that's where they keep the strongest jutsu, he said to open the door and leave an Uchiha with a frown. That idiot, he whispered, annoyed because the boy knew where the techniques were and only now, after spending 10 minutes searching the entire room. The Uchiha left him aside to leave, and when he peeked through the door where the Uzumaki was, he saw a very large warehouse where thousands of scrolls had apparently been resting for years. Naruto was walking through the aisles, each shelf filled with scrolls, as most were divided between 6 different shelves within each aisle. The first row ran through D ranks, from the 5 elements, with a shelf for each, to the non-elemental ones. This one took up only one shelf because there weren't many non-elemental jutsu compared to the elemental ones. The second hallway was the same, except it was C rank and the jutsus were divided equally, 1 shelf each, unlike the first row. This one had 2 shelves full of non-elemental jutsus, as non-elemental jutsus were the ninja rank, such as simple illusions or illusory clones. The following hallways, being B and A, were relatively the same as the D rank hallway, the 5 shelves of each element, and a single shelf for non-elemental jutsus because very few non-elemental jutsus reach level A or B. And lastly, in the row where Naruto was standing looking at the shelf of non-elemental jutsus, was the S-rank jutsu aisle, the aisle where the deadliest techniques were kept. Naruto, Sasuke, there isn't any important jutsu here. Just the vermilion Rasengan that I created a while ago. Although I didn't expect Grandma Tsunade to place it. I mean, it was another Rasengan influenced by Kurama, the boy said, looking at the shelf of non-elemental S-rank jutsus where there were almost no jutsu because these jutsus almost did not exist, not to mention that most of them are in the Forbidden Scroll because they are very dangerous. Sasuke, we'll take S-A and B-rank jutsu, and the most useful ones, so start looking for the good ones, do, said the Uchiha, taking a scroll and activating his 3-tone Sharingan. He looked at and read the scrolls at super speed, until an explosion of smoke made him sigh tiredly, then look at Naruto or the Narutos who were reading all the scrolls that 17 shadow clones and the original could read. This is boring, team, I say. Shouldn't an S-rank technique be super powerful? It barely allows you to turn into mud, what good would that do me in a fight? He asked as he poured the scroll, and apparently equally bored, the other clones did the same. Turning into clay gives you immunity to piercing attacks, though. Didn't you see that ninja Orochimaru who could do it and faced Kakashi? Naruto shook his head, but now he was interested. If he could take on Kakashi-sensei with just that technique, he must be very useful. Maybe he has something good in him that he didn't read. Fine, we'll take him, Naruto said with his arms crossed, not wanting to show that the fear had made him change his mind. although the Uchiha clearly noticed and gave a small mocking smile to the Uzumaki. "You can take this one if you want, it's one of the ones you like," said the Uchiha, throwing a scroll towards Naruto, who opened it, and seeing the name, smiled. Earth Release, Clash of the Mountains / Doton, Gaban Q. Naruto, he's definitely coming with me, he thought, smiling as he gave the scroll to one of the clones who kept it along with the one about turning into mud. Now excited to find more strong jutsu, Naruto continued searching for a few until he found an interesting one because he had seen it before. Terra Release, Netherworld Swamp / Doton, Yomi Numa. Wasn't this technique Eros Annon's? He thought doubtfully, until a sad smile fell on his face. Eros Annon, he whispered, remembering his self-proclaimed super-perverted teacher. Putting away the technique, Naruto threw it at the clones storing the jutsu and went for another. This one did surprise him because it was a technique he'd seen used by the best earth element user he'd ever seen. Earth, Light Rock Jutsu / Doton, Kijigen no Jutsu, the old Sachikage technique. He thought, looking at the technique that, in short, controlled, or rather lowered, the Earth's gravitational force on one or more objects selected by the user. It's a technique that, as far as I knew, had two stronger forms and one that was the opposite. The two stronger forms were the same as this one, but on a different level, making the object fly or float like the old man did. The opposite was the opposite, making an object heavier with gravitational forces. And like its opposite, this one also had two stronger forms that, although he never saw either of the two stronger forms in action, the first form could already leave immobilized, and even sink a Kaiga like the second Sachikage who was revived in the war along with a few thousand more. Naruto, if it's here, it means the variations will also be here, he thought with a smile upon learning the variations. Just by reading them, he should already have a good range of mastery, so this technique would easily become part of his arsenal. After searching for a few minutes, Naruto spotted another scroll, the same brown color as the Earth Jutsu, and realizing it was an exact copy of the other scroll, he picked it up. As expected, it was the advanced version of the Gravity Reduction Jutsu. "Hey!" he called the attention of his bored clones. The Kyuls were playing with the scrolls they had. "I need you to find the other version of this technique and its 3 inverses, respectively," he said, pointing at the scroll. The clones looked at him in boredom, until their eyes noticed the technique and they stood up in a flash, ready for action, which brought a smile to the original's face. "Good, I already have versions 1 and 2 of your normal form. So you have to find your version 3 and versions 1, 2, and 3 of the inverse." The clones, acting like soldiers, prepared themselves. "We won't let you down, boss," said one clone, acting like a soldier, causing the other clones to laugh, and the original clone, causing the clone to laugh at his own joke. Naruto stopped laughing and coughed into his hand before speaking again. "Fine. In the meantime, I'll look for lightning release jutsu. I don't know almost any," he said, then thought about the last thing with a drop of sweat. He learned many water jutsu from the second Hokage's techniques, and many other wood ones from the first Hokage, and that was the end of his arsenal. Or at least that's where his common jutsu arsenal ended, since he had varieties of jutsu variations like his Rasengan, or also his thousands of jutsu from the Biju Kekkai Genkai, the same ones he tried to copy from other Kekkai Genkai with his 5 nature releases, although he also focused on things like his connection with the Biju. Since now, he could do things that only his Jinchuriki could, such as covering himself in lava like Son Goku's Jinchuriki could, becoming elastic like Saiken's Jinchuriki when using his cloak. He also learned to summon Komiai's wings or take out one of their respective things individually. Useful for surprise and sudden attacks such as hitting someone with a tail or tentacle coming out of your lower back. Naruto left his clones searching for jutsu when he himself went to search for some lightning jutsu. Although they were probably more assassination jutsu than destruction jutsu, they would still be useful. He had thousands of deadly techniques in his repertoire, more powerful than any lightning jutsu, but they clearly weren't focused on killing like these techniques were. Since there were some that, with just a touch, could shut down your brain. They could even stop or change the direction of the mental waves your brain produces by thinking about every movement, making it almost impossible to move at all, or moving the wrong part at best, or dying at worst. Naruto started reading B-rank lightning techniques, while waiting for something good and not too bloody. Things that could help him kill, but not something excessively bloody like Chidori. Lightning release, electromagnetic killing / Raiten, Jibashi. Naruto looked at the technique with interest. A good electromagnetic shock could shut down someone's brain to stop a person's heart and kill them without much noise, of course, unless the jutsu creates a sound itself. "Boss, I found something good," a clone said in the original's ear, scaring the blonde, who tried to hit his clone, who blocked it with the same reaction. "What's wrong with you? Are you trying to scare me to death?" The clone scratched his head, embarrassed for scaring himself, which was kind of stupid. "I found a lightning jutsu and an earth jutsu that fit into Enosuke's stats," said the clone with 2 scrolls, one of lightning and the other of earth being the 2 jutsu said by the clone. The clone's nickname made the original laugh. "Enosuke, haha, I must call him that one of these days," he thought, holding back his laughter so as not to attract the attention of the Uchiha standing a few shelves away. Leaving the laughter behind, the original looked at both scrolls and opened the earth one out of interest since that technique was, for him, the most boring element, since it's all stone for defense and almost nothing for attack. Naruto, Earth Release, Rock Spears / Doton, Doryuso. "This isn't anything the team talked about, it's a direct fight or surprise attack," he said with a drop. And just like the original, the clone was embarrassed. "That's not the scroll, it's this one. My mistake," he said, taking out another scroll from his kunai holder, and opening it. The Uzumaki smiled. Earth Release, Mud Wolves / Doton, Kurii no Okami, Earth-style technique that allows the creation of mud wolves that will appear when an individual passes through a specific zona, thus creating ambushes. Naruto. "Yeah, this one's perfect," he said, along with the lightning techniques he chose. He threw it at his clone in charge of guarding the scrolls, and although he was hit by distraction, the clone quickly put the scrolls away after taking them. Later. So, both young men finished searching for all the interesting jutsu they found, although as both expected. Wind element jutsu were scarce and, as expected, none of the ones they had were even rank A, being only simple jutsu of ranks C, D, and B at most. Nothing interesting to train them in. Naruto, who had the earth scroll where the earth element jutsu and the few lightning ones were stored, leaving the medium-large scroll, looked at the Uchiha who was only holding a small scroll, where the few wind jutsu were. "Naruto, team, I think we should send clones to collect jutsus from other villages," he said with his arms crossed, even though Konoha had a very varied store of techniques. They couldn't deny that the other nations were the best in their respective element. Not for nothing Suna previously had the highest reproduction of air element users. Even when users of this element were very rare, or carry with the water elements, they could even harness the moisture of fog or rain to use techniques and save energy. The same was true of Iwa and Kumo, where the former could even learn to fly and use the Earth's gravity, and the latter could harness storms to enhance their power and lightning jutsu. Sasuke, you're right, Dobe. Konoha's arsenal isn't the largest beyond fire techniques. Although I want to go to Suna and Kumo first, he said, arms crossed, while keeping the scroll in his kunai holder. Naruto glared at him angrily because he knew he only wanted to go to those 2 villages because they were the 2 elements he was most interested in, along with fire, an element that the Uchiha masters to perfection. Air and lightning are the most powerful jutsu, only closely followed by water and rock. Good, I need more wind techniques too. I really need more jutsu besides the wind Rasengan and the Rasen Shuriken, he thought, his hands behind his head in a nonchalant manner. Naruto and Sasuke arrived at the camp, where Kakashi was calmly reading his orange textbook in a hammock, and Sakura was also reading a book. This one, however, was about very advanced medicine. The girl is really taking her sights on becoming the best medical ninja after Naruto and Sasuke. Yes, both are the best ninja in every field due to their almost divine powers. They are the fastest, strongest, most varied, with the best or nearly the best taijutsu, best jutsu, best Kekkei Genkai, best seals, only Naruto, and above all, the best at healing. Naruto, we're back, Kakashi-sensei, Sakura, Naruto said as he threw the scroll in a direction that seemed random, but it was really where his clones were training two techniques that he had been training for a long time and couldn't because of their difficulty. One was a golem in the form of a second Hokage, since it was very difficult to create a well-made golem, and there was also Madara's technique, limbo. For now, he could barely fit a clone into limbo, and even then, it was nearly impossible to do so with a second clone. Sasuke, you should be the one training things yourself. Your clones should just be there to help, not do all the work, said the Uchiha, arms crossed, as he sat down in a hammock, and the blonde joined him to lie down. Naruto, they're very easy techniques. A single clone could learn them all in the rest of the day, so don't worry too much. Besides, I'm already learning about the wood style from the old first. Suddenly, both Naruto and Sasuke stopped talking and remained silent. Kakashi felt a sharp pain in his head, like a warning, and Sakura couldn't even feel it very well. He knew someone, a natural energy user, had arrived. As Naruto taught him, a common natural energy user. Even when it couldn't be sensed due to being in contact with nature, it still created a kind of distortion in nature due to the energy flowing in and out of the user. Though that didn't happen with the Jubi portals, since they were almost one with nature, thus rendering the Jubi an abomination. Simply being a part of nature altogether. Naruto, you sure took a while, old Rikudo. Chapter 8. Naruto and his team watched as the old Hagoromo, or Sage of the Six Paths, emerged from the now-lit bonfire in spiritual form, carrying his sun and moon staff and 9 Gudadamas on his back as always. And do you have good news, Mr. Rikudo? Kakashi asked, standing up in the presence of the first and true shinobi god, the man in front of them. Yes, young Hatake. Fortunately, a few galaxies away, there is a planet called Earth where life is practically the same as it is here in physical terms. The man in a white coat and purple eyes said with a smile on his face. Naruto. Earth? You must have a hard time thinking that's what your planet is called, he said, smiling between laughs. His world at least had the decency to call itself the Element Nations because each country represented what element they commonly used. Sasuke hit the blonde's head to make him stop playing games. Stop laughing, Dobe, and pay attention to the information. Hagoromo, thank you, Indra Transmigrant. The old man thanked the Uchiha, who only nodded, allowing him to continue. Fine, although I can tell you not to investigate anything about the planet because of the rush, so if it has threats you'll have to find out for yourselves. Naruto, does that mean we might have to fight a lot of people for peace? Great. I shouted happily because I was already excited to fight. They might have super strong beings with whom to have a great battle. Kakashi slammed his book in his face at how idiotic and loud-mouthed the Uzumaki was. Though he wasn't surprised, the boy had always been that way since birth. It was a natural part of his personality, and since he knew his mother, he could say it ran in his family. Hagoromo, moving on. I mean, there's a strange energy on one side of the planet. I don't know much about that. But that energy seemed very negative, so be careful, he said, still serious. Because we should be careful, I mean. Better not go to a place in the world where that energy doesn't exist yet? Naruto asked doubtfully because his mind was telling him it was for the best. And a doubtful look from his friends told him they agreed. Hagoromo, who still had both sleeves tucked into his sleeves, spoke. Unless you want to spend years learning to speak very difficult languages. The place you're going to is your only option to have the same language, just a little more modern, he explained calmly. And Naruto nodded because it made sense. They wouldn't have to learn a foreign language unnecessarily, because he knew that even if they lived in another country far from that Japan, he would still travel there to fight those energy wielders because he wanted to fight someone strong. Sasuke, and how will we get to that place? I have to know, right? Hagoromo nodded. I'll give you the location, so you'll know where the planet is and where to go. You guys decide whether to go now or after you've prepared. Naruto, I say we go after. We need to save a lot of things and recover others, he said, thinking about the wind release jutsu he had to look for with Sasuke. Something that the Uchiha apparently also remembered since he nodded at his idea. Hagoromo, okay. I've already left the information in your mind, so I'll be going now. My chakra has run out in this world. Dino calmly, as the campfire flame disappeared and he left with it, leaving the team alone again. "Sakura, so when are we leaving?" asked the pink-haired girl looking at her team. Kakashi and Sasuke looked at Naruto, who was the one who said they shouldn't leave today. They themselves had nothing to do or save, so the only thing keeping them on this planet was the blonde himself. Naruto, who noticed the look, became confused. "Why are you looking at me like that?" he asked, pointing at himself. "Sasuke, you said we're not leaving today, so you must be right." Naruto understood that and nodded. "There are many important things we can have, like the weapons of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, the weapons I saw Tenten use that belong to the same sage, and also techniques from some village," he said with his hands behind his head, then looked at his team. "Seriously, none of you thought of that?" The others were ashamed for not thinking about such important things, except for the Uchiha, who didn't care. He had a sword and good jutsus. The rest was irrelevant to his arsenal. "Make sure you get all that today, we'll leave tomorrow," said the Uchiha with his arms crossed. Naruto, without taking it seriously, stuck his tongue out at her as if he didn't care. "I'll send several clones to the different nations today. Perhaps they'll return tomorrow at this time," he said, his hands on his head in a nonchalant manner. Io Uchiha said nothing as he began walking to the side of the forest where his own clones were training the hardest skills to learn from him, which was his space-time technique. He demonstrated the ability to open portals to the different dimensions of Kaguya he had been in, but he had no control over where in those dimensions he appeared. He even once appeared near a sun, a white sun that emitted such intense heat that if it weren't for his chakra, he would have suffered severe burns. Naruto, good, ninja art, multi-shadow clone jutsu. / ninpo, kaige bunshin no jutsu. With this he shouted, the entire clearing filled with smoke that when it cleared, revealed thousands and thousands of Naruto that were spread out everywhere, even on top of the trees and rocks in the place, some were even in the house. Naruto looked at his clones to clear his throat. "I'd say something, but you know what you're going to do, so go and stop playing stupid games," he said, looking at the clones, some of whom dismissed him. Which made Sakura and Kakashi mad. Is this really how his clones treat him? Kakashi thought. His clones had never, as far as he could remember, dismissed or ignored him like they had with the Uzumaki. Naruto, thoughts not again. The Uzumaki looked at the clones and smiled. "If you do, I'll give you each a ramen. I promise," he said, raising a thumbs up, though most of the clones looked at him with doubt. Some others had sped off to the south, north, west, and southeast, where the other 4 great nations were located. Naruto looked at his remaining clones and made a hand seal, causing them to disappear for disobeying. This was normal for clones when he made more than 1,000, as they ended up taking on a part of his personality, such as his irresponsibility or disobedience. Naruto looked at Kakashi to make a peace sign at the blank stare of his teacher and teammate. "Oh Naruto, you don't change." Sakura shook her head at the Uzumaki, who smiled embarrassedly. Even with the war and everything that happened and lost, the Uzumaki was still that idiot who brightened anyone's day, no matter how bad it was. Naruto, well, let's eat ramen, he thought, looking at the tree and climbing with a flickering sunshin body. He searched inside the wooden cabinets that were in the kitchen, but when he opened it, he didn't see anything, not even the few remaining unlimited versions of ramen that Tuchi's shop had, the only man to cook ramen that tastes spicy, sour but is good for digestion and healthy. Naruto's mind began to race with 1,000 scenarios and ideas about where they could be or who might have been taking his ramen, and though he thought and thought, he couldn't bring himself to blame his team for why. 1. Sakura hated ramen, or at least instant ramen, because it was unhealthy. 2. His sensei, even eating the ramen, would just steal it to eat it right away, so he couldn't take it away. And the man was in the hammock, and with his chakra sensor, I never felt him move or disappear with Kamui. Since he could sense the special distortions of the Kamui, or at least know what happened even if he didn't know where. And 3. Sasuke was with him while he was in Konoha, and upon his return he never disappeared or stopped feeling him, so he never moved with his spacetime techniques. And not to mention that the Uchiha hated spicy food, so he wouldn't eat his spicy chili ramen. So his only option is Those bastards, if they weren't so far away, I'd make them disappear and spoil their lunch, he thought angrily as crocodile tears fell down his cheeks. Meanwhile, in different locations across the Element Nations, Naruto's clones were eating ramen. Some were sharing their stolen limited edition ramen with another clone because it was so good. Naruto wasn't a big fan of spicy food, but ramen was something else for them. The next day, Naruto could be seen with a small backpack alongside Sasuke, Kakashi, and Sakura, ready to travel to the new world where they were supposed to encounter something they hadn't seen in a while: people. Or at least half-living people, since they've seen many corpses these days, plus the ones they had to kill to become white setsus. Naruto, who was the only one with luggage, kept all the scrolls in his backpack, along with all the clothes, the little food they had, and most of all the jutsu Naruto looted from the villages, even villages that weren't the Big Five, as his clones had the brilliant idea. Although half of them were delayed because of it, they had to enhance their bodies with chakra to arrive on time. Naruto, we're ready now, Naruto said, looking at the Uchiha. The emo understood, and activating the tomos of his Rinnegan, he made it pass to the Supreme Rinnegan, and with that, a type of purple smoke came out of the eye and a wormhole with a large size was formed in front of the Uchiha. Naruto looked at the portal and smiled. So, who goes first? He asked, smiling and looking at his companions, although clearly none of them wanted to. Sasuke, because he himself didn't know where he opened the portal, he only knows that it was towards the chosen planet. Kakashi was already thinking about doing it. He could become intangible so he couldn't be harmed by anything, but he remembered that it only lasted more than 5 minutes, so he could die at some point. Now that no one was going to do it, the Uzumaki sighed. I really hate being the invulnerable one here, Naruto thought, and at that moment, his body turned golden with his power covering him. And without fear, the Uzumaki leaped toward the portal, crossing it and leaving his team behind. The team, who, without much interest, stood waiting for the Uzumaki to return, which took a few minutes, drawing several frowns from his team, until the blonde's head covered the portal. Come quickly, was the only thing the Uzumaki said when they were at their base, crossing the portal again, leaving his team a little confused. But expecting trouble, the Uchiha created a sheet of lightning and crossed the portal, followed by his companions who were prepared for any necessary battle. On the other side, as Team 7 crossed the portal, Sasuke encountered Naruto, who was dodging spikes thrown by an angry chestnut. The Uchiha ignored this as an owl, taller than a person, tackled him from the air. Although the Uchiha was able to jump to avoid it, the same strange owl attacked him again with its body covered in purple lightning. Raikiri! A scream was heard, as Kakashi, with a lightning bolt in his hand, was about to collide with the owl, but was quickly intervened by a blue attraction that enveloped him and pulled him down. And Sakura quickly appeared next to the girl attacking Naruto with spikes. As she was about to hit her, a pink-haired man intervened and protected the girl from the powerful blow, but they were still sent flying into a tree. Naruto looked at his team and smiled. Thanks, he said to Sakura and Sasuke, who were approaching. And Kakashi-sensei? He asked, noting that the scarecrow hair was nowhere to be seen, although a slight tremor and a hole in the ground made him see where his sensei was coming from. Kakashi-sensei? Why are you here? Naruto asked, grabbing one of his sensei's arms and pulling him out like a porcelain doll. Thank you, Naruto, said the Hatake, his face blank for his student. And to answer the question, something was pulling me, so I went into the ground to avoid being pulled out. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked at Sasuke. Did you use Basho Tenin on Kakashi-sensei? The Uzumaki asked, but received an obvious denial from the Uchiha. No. So we must be careful with our enemies, he said calmly, looking at Naruto. Dobe, how did you end up in this? He asked, looking at his friend, who scratched his head, seemingly in embarrassment. Well, when I crossed the street, I ended up colliding with that girl, and she got angry and threw a nail at me, and I dodged it. But when they saw it was shining, they took it as a curse. Kakashi. Curse? What would a curse have to do with your appearance? He asked doubtfully. A curse was something non-physical, so the assumption about those enemies didn't make sense. Naruto shrugged without interest. I don't know, But there's really no point right now. They're over there planning something, he said calmly. Sasuke activated his Rinnegan and looked in the direction Naruto had said. And although he couldn't see far into the distance, he could see perfectly, making every kilometer of distance as clear as the first few meters. There's a pink head of hair over there. Naruto nodded. There are 4 of them and they're apparently planning something, so we should be ready, Naruto said, thinking something strange to himself. Even though I can't sense them due to a lack of chakra, Kurama's bad emotion sensor tells me where they are. It's as if they were just bad intentions and that's it. He stepped aside and prepared himself. We're the shinobi here, right? So why don't we launch a sneak attack? Kakashi asked, and Naruto smiled. Naruto, that's right. Sakura, give me air and you Sasuke, give me ground. Kakashi-sensei with Sakura-chan, through the trees, are 20 seconds to the right, he said, and everyone started. Sakura with her super strength lifted him up and sent him through the sky. Sasuke came out through the ground, using a technique to soften the rocks and move through it as if it were water, and Kakashi and Sakura climbed through the trees to head towards where their targets would be. Chapter 9. Strangers could be seen talking. One of them was Yuji Itadori, the salmon-haired boy from earlier, wearing a navy blue outfit with a red scarf around his neck. Next to him was the girl from earlier, named Nobara Kujisaki, wearing the same uniform, but a female version. Next to these 2 were 2 more people. One was a young man their age with spiky black hair that stuck out in all directions and an emo face, not yet an Avenger, named Megumi Fushiguro. The other was a 29-year-old man with snow-white hair, and the same uniform as his students, only with a blindfold. He was Satoru Gojo. Gojo-sensei. How should we act right now? The black-haired man asked seriously, looking at the adult member of the quartet. He held his chin without much concern. Really, Megumi? I think we'll see what happens, he said, smiling, drawing a drop of sweat from the black-haired man and the rest of the squad. Although it was strange, my 6 eyes couldn't feel them. Even when they were right in front of me, I couldn't feel them. Yuji, being the most attentive to the enemies, decided to speak. But sensei, didn't you notice that the man who came out with a lightning bolt in his hand simply disappeared into the ground when the blue aura tried to grab him? Satoru nodded at that. Now that you mention it. Those blows from that pink-haired boy were really strong, and the other black-haired boy was strange. I hadn't seen a lightsaber much before. Besides Star Wars, but that doesn't count, he said thoughtfully, while Yuji looked at her very strangely. Pink-haired man? Are you talking about the girl who hit me? He asked, confused. While Nobara raised an eyebrow. Is it Chika? Well, she was sideways, and I couldn't see her. But even so, she hits pretty hard for a normal girl, she said, remembering how she was sent packing when Itadori collided with her. If the salmon-haired boy hadn't been paying attention, she would have been killed in one hit. Megumi, we must prepare before they find us. If they take advantage of this lost time, they will kill us. The black-haired man had to cut himself off, when quickly. From the ground, a white flash appeared, revealing Sasuke, who came out with Chidori in hand, pointing at Gojo, but surprisingly the attack stopped inches from the bandaged man's face. Before stopping to think about what happened, Sasuke had to move away from the center of the team when several spikes were thrown at his new position. This time, though, they were all stopped when he raised his hand and a barrier of some kind quickly stopped them. Sakura appeared next to Nobara to hit her, but Kujisaki was able to move, causing the blow to knock down several trees where her head should have been. This girl sure has strength, Kujisaki thought, this time backing away from a blow that nearly killed her again. He attacks super fast, he's super strong. More than Gojo-sensei, I can't beat him alone. I need Ida. The girl cut short her thoughts when she witnessed Naruto grab Yuji's head, and in a single burst, he ran off, destroying several trees with Itadori's head, leaving a trail of destruction in a straight line. With Megumi it was no different. This Sasuke had him cornered even though he had his sword of what he now realized was lightning. He could easily confront and humiliate Fushiguro against his cursed sword that wasn't being countered very well. Elsewhere. Naruto, hey kid. You didn't die, did you? Naruto asked, looking at Yuji buried headfirst in the ground. He really went a bit overboard, but he expected it to be because he received an attack from Sakura. The kid should at least be able to withstand several trees in the face. I'm awake. Naruto watched as Yuji pulled his head out of the rubble with some splinters in his face. That really hurt. Hell, not even Mahito can hit that hard, Yuji said, his face in pain. Naruto smiled at the sight of him. Well, at least I can say we'll have fun, he said, looking at the boy, who became serious upon hearing him. Standing up from the crater where he had been standing, he stared at Naruto. Yuji, what do you want, damn it? He said, covering his fists with an energy that, although he couldn't see it, Naruto raised an eyebrow, feeling negative feelings concentrating in the boy's fists. Naruto smiled, getting ready for the fight. I don't know what you're talking about, like a curse or all that. But I hope you can last at least a few minutes fighting. With that said, Itadori launched himself at high speed at Naruto, who received him ready for battle. He started with a few quick, but by no means weak, blows from Yuji, which Naruto easily blocked and dodged. The difference was abnormally large, and Naruto wouldn't take this battle seriously, unless the boy had an ace up his sleeve. Stopping to think, Naruto began his counterattack, which ranged from a very common two-hit combo to the boy's face to a roundhouse kick. But without taking a break, he used his superior speed to get on top of Yuji and attack again with strong blows that the boy saw coming, but couldn't react in time, leaving him on the defensive. Until he managed to block a fist well enough to deliver a counterblow that caused a strong black flash that made Naruto grunt from feeling the blow on his forearm. Because of that, Naruto had to smile as he stepped back, even though he wasn't hurt. He still had to be careful with the boy's sudden surge. He could easily pull out a card that would win him the day. Naruto looked at his forearm, where he could see a small bruise. Something he hadn't suffered since the ninja war. I felt that, he whispered, thinking about what the boy or what he thought the boy did in that millisecond after the impact of his blow. Even my bones shook from the impact. Not to mention that for 1,000th of a second, I felt a surge in his negative emotions. That's a power of 2.5. And his strength increased dramatically in that second. He thought, looking at the boy as he deciphered, even without knowing it, the technique behind the impact that increased Yuji's blow by 2.5 times. He should be a little more careful with the boy's blows, although that would only be when he feels that millisecond increase again. Naruto, okay, back to action, he said, ready to battle. And Yuji, who was bleeding a little from his head from his previous blow, but ignoring this, he got ready for battle again. Come to my curse, he said while smiling, ready to continue the battle. I noticed that his black lightning caused a bruise, so if he continues like that, he could hurt him. Although he couldn't continue thinking when a strong kick sent him flying from the Uzumaki. He accelerated, followed his body through the air, then tried to kick the boy in the face, which he blocked with his forearm. To dig firmly into the ground and try to crash Naruto into the ground. Realizing Itadori's intentions, Naruto weakened his impact with the ground, digging his hands into it. Naruto then kicked Yuji's face, and with a sweep, left the boy in the air, about to fall. Yuji braced himself for a blow, though to his surprise he fell to the ground without taking another hit. Quickly standing up, he saw his opponent standing in front of him. You're not the best at agility battles, so how about we go for a little boxing? Yuji was confused by what she said. Besides talking, does he also know martial arts? He thought, looking at a strange curse. He knew curses could be humanoid and even talk, but how long has that curse been around for him to even know martial arts? With that, Yuji got back into position. Looking confused and skipping, Naruto prepared for hand-to-hand combat. The boy seemed good at fighting, although his strength and speed were light years ahead if he went more seriously. He knew he could at least face him on base without dying. Ready, Naruto began throwing a strong right that Yuji blocked with difficulty, but easily countered with a right jab that hit Naruto's face, without stopping the pace. He tried to punch the boy who clenched his fist and Naruto felt it. Their fists collided and Naruto saw the sudden increase in strength that made him clench his fists. But Yuji was also surprised when his black lightning was winning. But as if it were a game, Naruto's fist took advantage and, after the clash of force, hit Itadori hard in the face, which flew from the strong impact on his right cheek, and Naruto smiled at winning. That increase in strength is really surprising, he thought, because although he had a total advantage in that fist clash, his strength rose to 2.5 and he began to lose. Yuji on the ground groaned in pain from the strong blow. He could tell that at least one tooth, maybe even two, were gone, and many more were about to go as well. Ridiculous. Are you serious, brat? Losing to someone so weak like that, you're pathetic. Yuji frowned at the voice at his side. Sukuna, could you at least shut your mouth for a minute? Keep your mouth shut until I ask for your word. Yuji felt a rather unpleasant smile appear on Ryaman Sukuna, king of curses. Whatever you want, brat, I'll show you respect sooner or later, he whispered, stopping Itadori from speaking, disappearing from his cheeks. Seeing that the old sorcerer had left his cheek, the boy stood up and faced Naruto, who, though he hadn't changed at all, had slightly sharpened eyes and slightly sharper teeth, indicating that he had been influenced somewhat by Kurama's chakra. Naruto, shall we continue? He asked as his eyes stopped being scratched and he was back on base. That hit, in addition to increasing to 2.5, also delivered a double blow at the same time, technically 2.5 for 2. Something that ended up defeating his base strength for a few seconds, although a bit of Kurama's chakra resolved it. Yuji prepared to return to the fight. Although his opponent's strength increased with each blow, and he was once again overwhelmed, he realized something. His rookie mistake, which he had caused when he didn't yet have full control of his cursed energy, nicknamed Divergent Fist, when used with luck. In conjunction with Black Flash, it can boost up to 2.5 times its power, if used with force. Something that is raised to 4. Yuji, if I managed to use them at the same time again, I could overwhelm him with a blow to the face, he thought, concentrating. One strategy for using consecutive black flashes is to remain completely calm, something almost impossible for someone in combat. But he could try it for now and leave it to luck. Elsewhere, purple lightning could be seen falling from the sky as Sasuke dodged the barrage of electricity, all the while engaging in close combat with a black wolf with a white combination and a triangle on its forehead. Sasuke was easily beating the wolf, as its speed wasn't surprising at all, and its strength wasn't a surprise to him either. Having literally seen creatures up to 600 meters away fighting, this really wouldn't be a challenge even for his 13-year-old self. Sasuke, Chidori Nagashi, he exclaimed when an array of lightning covered the Uchiha, causing a strong discharge in the wolf that howled loudly. Although he had to stop due to strong vibrations in the ground. Sensing the danger, he leaped wildly, rising more than 30 meters, trying to avoid the large snake that emerged from the ground to devour him in one bite. Snakes? Are there snake summoners here too? The Uchiha wondered as snakes coiled around the giant serpent from his sleeves, and with a firm grip, he managed to launch himself in its direction. Though he didn't expect Megumi to spring out of its mouth, ready to strike. Sasuke frowned, and with his Sharingan active he looked into Megumi's eyes, who looked back at him seriously, while he broke his fall to give the final blow to his opponent. Extending his sword, Megumi waited to stab the other dark-haired man, who, unable to fly, fell on the blade, stabbing him in the chest. Or so he thought when, in a blur of white smoke, he noticed he had only stabbed a symmetrical tree trunk, and that earned him a kick to the face that sent him tumbling to the side of the forest. And while in the snake's mouth, where the Fushiguro had been, Sasuke now lowered his foot and saved himself from the animal's mouth, which might attack him instantly. Already in the air, Sasuke made 3 hand seals and placed his fingers on the sides of his mouth while his chest swelled abnormally. Fire style, Great Fireball / Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu. With that, another gigantic fireball shot out at the snake, which, unable to react, took the flame in its mouth, incinerating it with several movements, and then fell to the ground. Sasuke began making other hand seals, placing his hands on the ground and saying, "What are you doing here?" Earth style, Underworld Swamp / Doton, Yomi Numa. And instantly, the entire ground beneath the snake began to soak, turning into a swamp that began to swallow the still-calling snake. Although the snake disappeared into the shadows, Megumi, who was responsible for this action, was already in the distance. Megumi, At this rate, he'll wipe out all my Shikigami. But what is his cursed technique? The boy asked himself while his jade wolf protected him as best it could. First he uses lightning, then snakes, now fire and earth. It's impossible for a technique to exist with so many variations but none of them being similar to each other. The boy tried to find something to decipher the technique, but it was impossible. A cursed technique should have only one function, and the variation stemmed from that function. He could summon animals through his shadow, and the variation was being able to enter his shadow. His master Gojo could slightly manipulate the space around him, and the variants were to push away or attract space along with the fusion of both variants. But then there is his opponent. At first he thought it would be an elemental manipulation technique to control elements, but the summoning of what he assumed were snake-type Shikigami tells him that his technique was not about that. Megumi. Unless everything I see is a lie, it's impossible to decipher his cursed technique, she whispered, standing up, and the wolf, noticing this, cleared the way. With nothing else to analyze, Megumi took up her sword and prepared. These were those moments where thinking didn't help her, and technique was better than doing something more basic and risky, charging into battle head-on. And although that was his plan, he didn't expect the strong uppercut that came from Sasuke that sent Megumi flying off the ground. I forgot I could get out of the ground, Megumi thought as she clenched her jaw from the tremendous blow. And Sasuke, who looked at him, didn't notice the smile that spread across Fushigiro's face. Until he felt something on his sword. It was Megumi's shadow reflected in the sunset. And without being able to react, a claw pierced the Uchiha's chest. Gain. Megumi whispered as she got up from the ground and spitting out her lost tooth, she looked at her Sasuke who was apparently surprised by the claw that had just killed him. Chapter 10. Yuji charged at high speed against the Kurama Jinchuriki, who was calmly waiting for him. And when they stood face to face, the two continued their previous battle, where Yuji tried to land blows on Naruto, who dodged them. It seemed like nothing would change. Naruto had a total advantage over Itadori, giving him even more of an advantage thanks to the faint scent of Kurama in his body. This is already boring, he whispered as he prepared himself, letting a punch pass by the side of his face. Clenching his fist, he prepared a powerful blow that collided with Itadori's face. It caused a shockwave so strong that a sonic wave shook the surroundings. As if in slow motion, Naruto watched as Yuji's mouth fell open in pain. But in a second, Itadori's body flew off in a straight line, causing massive destruction throughout the forest. Looking at the destruction wreaked on Itadori's body, Naruto calmly put his hands in his coat pockets. For someone who's physically weak, he has some pretty good fighting styles. Naruto nodded at what was said in his mind by the voice of Son Goku, who was technically the Biju with the best taijutsu of the 9 due to his stronger structure, like, ironically, that of a gorilla. Naruto, yeah, really, if I were faster or stronger I could put up a better fight. But as it is, my 4-year-old self could beat him, he thought as he walked through all the trail of destruction the boy left behind. Naruto, upon exiting the forest, arrived at a clearing near a river, in the center of which was Itadori, who was severely damaged and could barely stand. I really hit him hard, Uzumaki thought, watching Itadori try to stand, the key word being try. At that moment, Naruto saw a black mane emerge from the forest. This was Sasuke Uchiha, who was holding Megumi. Seemingly hypnotized or in an illusion, Sasuke easily held him in his hand. Naruto, you don't seem to have had any trouble with him? What did you do? He asked doubtfully. Sasuke shrugged uninterestedly. I put him under a genjutsu in the first few minutes. Apparently, they have no experience with illusion techniques, he said, because the boy apparently never noticed that the entire battle, which he believed he had won, had only been in his imagination. Great, and how do you think things will go for Kakashi-sensei and Sakura? The Uchiha shrugged. They should both be finishing up. The other two aren't much of a problem either. From what I can tell, they can't sense us and apparently aren't as fast as we are. Naruto nodded because he noticed the same thing. The fact that everyone could divide the team before they could realize it said that their reaction speed was not even a third of theirs. Yes, Naruto JJK, .. Elsewhere. Kakashi could be seen in a hand-to-hand fight with the blindfolded man named Satoru Gojo. The two seemed evenly matched, although in truth, Kakashi had the advantage. He could dodge every blow the man struck with ease, and he could counterattack just as easily. The only thing that kept this from ending from the second it started was the fact that, apparently, a barrier or something non-physical was covering the man, making his physical attacks stay suspended waiting to reach the man and never arrive, and his chakra attacks would run out before reaching the Gojo, giving him visible invulnerability to Kakashi. That I still continued, because I knew I had to be able to get through it. Doing several backflips, Kakashi made hand seals to prepare. Fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu / Katan, Gokaku no Jutsu. With that, a gigantic fireball shot out toward the white-haired man, who didn't move because, as he expected, the attack never reached him. Although he was confused because he didn't see his attacker. Though a vortex appeared behind him, launching a surprise attack with his Raikiri that obviously failed. I think you'll need more than surprise attacks to break through my limitless. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, slightly misunderstanding the language. It must be because of the era difference the Rakuta Sannin spoke of. He thought, then made hand seals, this time causing electricity to surge out of the ground. Although the attack didn't reach Satoru again, who smiled. You won't be able to touch me. My defense is impenetrable and unreachable by any normal attack. Kakashi frowned. Impenetrable and unreachable for him translated into a lot of effort. More than I should have given to this fight, but I still created a plan. Nothing is unreachable or impenetrable. The logic is simple. Anything within the space can be impenetrable if the attack is aimed at the object. But if you manage to attack something superior, it will be easy to reach and destroy. Kakashi now more seriously activated his Sharingan, which quickly turned into a double Manjikyu Sharingan. Just a moment, he thought, before beginning the plan. Throwing 2 kunai at the target, they were stopped and then thrown back at him, and although he deflected one, the other hit him in the shoulder, severely wounding him. Or so the Gojo thought, until he exploded into smoke, revealing that he was a clone, and confusing Satoru. He had to move away when Kakashi emerged from another vortex in space, and then spit a ball of fire in his face. But to Gojo's surprise, this fire was black, and even as he stood still, hoping it wouldn't hurt him, he was confused when he felt more than just heat. He felt his skin burning from the powerful flames. I'm passing my unlimited, he thought, amazed and worried. Then, moving a hand instantly, he tried to move all the fire with a blue aura that in theory should attract the flames towards him. But this same attack was burned, which left him in shock, as it was impossible, because blue was technically a spatial distortion that distanced space from himself. With no options, he left the fire, while using reverse energy to instantly heal the burns. Although now more serious, he removed the bandage from his face, revealing abnormally illuminated blue eyes. Kakashi looked at the eyes with doubt. They seemed like an ocular power. But what did they do, or did they do anything special? Who would have thought you had a technique to pass my unlimited, right? And tell me, what did you do? Gojo asked calmly. He still had his abilities tucked away, and even his 2 instant win cards. Nothing is indestructible or unattainable if you can damage the space around it, he said calmly, moving his bandana to reveal his other active Sharingan. You are inside the space, so regardless of your durability and resistance, if the space is consumed you will be too. Gojo smiled. I thought you knew my technique was spatial manipulation, but apparently you just attacked with something impossible to resist, and that was it. Nice copy, he said, and Kakashi shrugged uninterested. He could tell she was older than him, so she wasn't a copy. Besides, he wouldn't say it, but he was exhausted. Using the properties of Kami in the fire technique, in addition to sapping the attack's power, was very tiring for him. It would be better to use the safe attack, he whispered as he disappeared again into another sunshin of leaves, confusing Gojo. The 6 eyes tell me nothing about him or his abilities, and he doesn't have cursed energy, so I can't sense him at any time. His companions are also undetectable, and apparently, Nobara and Megumi have fallen, and Itadori is subdued. The man with bright eyes smiled. I haven't been so serious for a while, but it's nothing. Everything's under control. Saying that, Gojo turned around as Kakashi reappeared, this time with a Raikiri in his hand, which he used to make the other appear with the same technique in his hand. The two connected, leaving a line of electricity in the center of both. Knowing what would happen, Gojo closed his hands and waited. In a flash, Kakashi and his clone were inches away from reaching Gojo, just as his clairvoyance had predicted. The beam turned black, and in a second, space was cut through. But to Kakashi's surprise, Gojo wasn't there. Even if you're faster, you won't be able to react to an instant teleportation, right? Kakashi watched his back as Gojo smiled at him with his bright blue eyes. Okay, how about we increase the power? Reverse rotation, red glow. With that, a spark appeared on the tip of his finger and began to glow a remarkable crimson. Kakashi had to place his hands in an X when a mysterious, powerful force ejected him with great force. If you could ask him what it looked like, he'd say Sasuke was using Shinra Tensei on him for the hell of it. Although doing something that due to lack of speed he couldn't stop, he placed his feet with chakra as hard as possible and waited for the force to stop. And when he stopped, Kakashi had to become intangible after being kicked by Saturo, who was surprised and moved away. In addition to manipulating space, he possesses elemental techniques. Can he use his spatial ability to transform into those techniques and become intangible? Saturo began to wonder. This couldn't all come from the same curse technique. Aside from the cursed energy flute in him, their techniques were completely unrelated. One was about space, another about elements, and another about intangibility. Neither had anything to do with the other, which, from his perspective as a jujutsu sorcerer, made no sense or logic. A cursed technique by default only had one property: you can only invent variations, which are often very few, that are related to the original technique. Saturo had to stop analyzing when he felt something, and at that moment he noticed that his arm was being sucked into a vortex that, to his surprise, crossed infinity and apparently didn't even affect him in the first place. You also have a technique like that? Gojo had to grunt in pain as his arm was crushed right in the vortex, then grotesquely severed from his body and sucked into the Kami's vortex. Are you giving up already? Fighting and reading my book is annoying, you know? Gojo had to step aside when he heard Kakashi's voice behind him, and when he turned around he saw the Hatake reading a book without paying attention, or so it seemed. Arrogant, aren't you? I haven't even started the real battle, but I'll say it. You're strong. Kakashi shrugged, his recognition uninteresting. Fine, let's go all out now. Reverse rotation, red glow. With that, a red glow appeared on the arm Kakashi noticed regenerated. Kakashi again stuck to the ground with chakra without any problem, although this time he was surprised. When he not only felt the force of the push, but also the force increasing until he noticed something colliding with his forehead and being thrown out, leaving a large trail of destruction in the area. Saturo, beauty, don't tell me you've already fallen for that, have you? In the distance, Kakashi began to emerge from a large clump of wood and trees knocked down by the attack. I didn't notice, but none of his attacks can be seen. They're only noticeable by the difference they cause in the air around us. Kakashi, who had lost his headband due to the powerful attack, had to close one eye to remove several splinters from his eyebrow. This will be a nuisance, so I might cause an undetectable attack. Standing up, Kakashi used basic Shunsen and returned to the battlefield, where the white-haired man was once again waiting for him. Okay, I'll finish this with the next attack. Kakashi thought calmly as his opponent smiled, apparently thinking about doing something. Which I clearly wouldn't allow. Activating the Mangekyou Sharingan again, I leave it active to make a faster switch between intangibility and teleportation instead of activating it right away. Lightning style, electric dog jutsu / Raiten, Kai ni Ken. With that, an electric dog charged at Gojo, who, unconcerned, dodged it, then moved from a crack in the sky where a clone of Kakashi emerged. He then had to deal with another Kakashi who charged at him in a fight, leaving him in a 2-on-1 situation. He wasn't having a bad time due to his unlimited power, although he wasn't doing too well either, as the clones managed to fight him on equal terms without much trouble. He solved this by inducing his fist with his blue power and drawing his enemies towards him. And upon meeting them with his fist, The two exploded into a large curtain of smoke that grew even larger as two smoke balls exploded near Saturo. Cut me out! That's a bit useless on someone wearing bandages, don't you think? Gojo said, smiling, though he was still serious. He was able to sense everything around him, even with bandages, thanks to his almost perfect perception of cursed energy. He was able to distinguish someone's shape, size, and appearance with just cursed energy. But now, his opponent doesn't have cursed energy, so he was technically invisible to him, and that's why he removed his bandages within seconds of the battle. So this situation of being blind wasn't beneficial to him at all. Gojo, where is it? Here? There? You know what? I'd better find out for myself. With that, a blue sphere appeared again and all the smoke began to be drawn towards it. Then Gojo released it into the sky and cleared the battlefield again. Although now Gojo noticed that Kakashi was apparently missing, and that confused him. But he decided not to let his guard down. He knew that with an enemy who had disabled his infinity, he could die if he was careless. And that's exactly what happened when, in his infinity, the distortion in space appeared again, but this time he didn't try to harm Gojo. But inside a voice was heard. Fire release, wild dance of explosive winds / Katon, Bakufu ran bun. With that, a flame from the Kamui hit Gojo in the face, and then from the same distortion Kakashi came out, and with his /hands wrapped in Kamui rays / Kamui right began the massacre against Satoru. With his head still on fire, Kakashi began punching Satoru in the face, then kicking him in the chest and quickly hitting him again with a brutal left and right combo. Gojo, trying to get out of the situation, was going to interlace his hands to teleport, but one of his hands was cut off in an instant by Kakashi, who followed the assault instantly. After a powerful kick to the face that sent him flying. He then disappeared into Kamui and appeared behind his opponent. He touched him with his hand and sucked him into the Kamui in his eyes. He was later swallowed, leaving the meadow empty. Chapter 11. Naruto and Sasuke fell into the meadow where Kakashi and Gojo fought, denoted by all the destruction and black fire that distorted and burned the very space of the environment. Naruto smiled at this. He waved his hand, extinguishing the fire. Anyone who can mess with space can resist it. He had already held the space, or rather, he held the space open with two cracks in space. Kakashi-sensei must have the advantage. There's a left arm here, and it's not sensei's, he said, smiling. Sasuke spoke in the distance. There's a palm tree here. Naruto, so Kakashi fights someone without arms. Sasuke. No, this one's left too, he said, looking at the hand that had been cut cleanly and directly under all circumstances. A spatial cut, at the very least. Naruto, oh, someone who regenerates. He thought, looking at that. Does that mean Kakashi fights someone who regenerates? What do you think, win or lose? Lose. Regeneration is useless if they're just cutting off your limbs, he said as his eyes changed to an eternal Mangekyou Sharingan, and his arms disappeared into black flames as hot as, or hotter than, the sun itself. Naruto nodded because he knew it. No amount of immortality is useful if your enemy is brutally stronger, as was the case now. Kakashi will just hack off his limbs until he tires and loses. Here they come. Naruto spoke as a portal opened, and from there, a Kakashi sighing heavily emerged, while an almost equally exhausted Gojo came out with his clothes full of blood and sleeveless due to the continuous loss of arms. Naruto, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto watched as the adult held his eyes in pain. Continuous use of the Mangekyou really isn't any better, even if the exhaustion is gone, the silver-haired man whispered to himself, though Naruto and everyone else heard him. Naruto, did you really use that much of your Mangekyou? Intangibility doesn't drain you that much. That only happens with... Naruto stopped suddenly as he understood. An enemy that could only be stopped or damaged by special space attacks was a difficult person to deal with, but how did that work? What made it so that only space attacks would hurt him? Was he invulnerable? No, Kakashi would rather use strategy than waste so much chakra. It was something that only gave him that as a last resort, perhaps. Naruto, no common attacks work on you, right? Kakashi smiled. Who knows? Gojo's smile fell on Naruto, who placed his hand on Kakashi's back and a pulse of chakra hit the area and seals appeared on the adult ninja's body. Naruto smirked. I'll be your opponent, Kakashi-sensei. For now, he's a little bored of kicking your ass. Unfortunately for you, he said as his hand became engulfed in Kurama's energy, instantly covering his entire body. I don't get bored of breaking faces. With that, Gojo couldn't notice when, in an instant, Naruto had a blow to his face. Inches away from hitting him, but it never came due to the infinite distance between them. Which brought Gojo's usual smile. As I expected, space protects you or something. Naruto stepped back as a flash of light fell over his head. And there Sakura fell, a Nobara following her. Couldn't you close it, Sakura? Being a doctor gave you a limit or something? Naruto asked amusedly, looking at how Sakura was totally fine like the whole team, while Nobara seemed to be dirty and other things, so that must have been her defeat. Sakura, it's not that idiot. Naruto blanked his face at the unnecessary insult. They both agreed that this would be behind them, and they would return to their healthier friendship. But old habits die hard, especially when he finds a way to overcome them. Naruto, how boring. Sakura ignored him. Kakashi-sensei, apparently this is all just a mix-up. The group looked at each other in confusion, all the men seemingly unsure. Confusion? Not that we were fighting to see who was better. Naruto asked, looking at Sasuke, who shrugged, simply falling on his enemy and defeating him. The reason was never explained to him. And the same with Kakashi and Gojo, both only fought each other so neither knew why. Sakura, men are such idiots. Nobara, don't even mention it. Both girls smiled at each other. Well, apparently they didn't mistake Naruto for one of those monsters here that appear because of other people's fears. Curses, but I'm just remembering wrong. Nobara nodded at his unspoken question. That's offensive. Naruto wondered why they mistook him for such an idiot as a monster. Either they're blind or the monsters here are very beautiful. Leave the arrogance alone. You're too normal in your characteristics to believe yourself so much. Naruto, for your information, I do have strange eyes and hair. At least in their color tone, but I'm still strange. Also, my height, body, and features are those of royalty. So yes, I am abnormal. He thought to himself, hearing the voice of someone he recognized as Gyuki, the eight-tailed octopus who always spoke bluntly. If that's true, then this whole thing was pointless. And is it Naruto's fault for going into his seven paths mode? Kakashi wrote down what he understood, which brought Naruto out of his reverie, making him even more indignant. Hey! You didn't want to cross the portal for fear of dying, don't blame me, he said indignantly. Kakashi only returned his words with his unwavering one-eyed smile that made a tick tickle his forehead at his teacher's directly indirect mockery. Sakura, well, what Kakashi-sensei said without Naruto. This is all a coincidence, since they were just passing through when the portal appeared and Naruto appearing like nothing was what caused the fight. Everyone nodded, leaving the room in an awkward silence. Then, Kakashi-sensei grabbed the white-haired old man by mistake. Naruto smirked as he began to laugh alongside Shikaku in his mind at his manipulation of words for his benefit. And everyone around him sweat dropped at the blonde's lame joke. Naruto, how bitter. He thought, seeing that no one else laughed. So what do we do now? I don't think this simple thing will end here, and no one has ever seen each other or anything like that, right? Naruto and Gojo looked in different directions, scratching their heads as if they had never seen each other, and Kakashi shrugged. This made Sasuke, who had spoken, Nobara and Sakura sweat drop because of the idiots they had around them. Kakashi, although Sasuke is right, I don't think this will just stay here. You and I will have questions about each other and about the whole issue that got mixed up here, so is it you or me? Saturo shrank at the sight of his copy. Yeah, sure. You guys can come with us, and we'll talk or something. Gojo shrugged without much interest. Just like Naruto did, he seemed to be in his own mind because he laughed, spoke in a low voice, and shook his head at a speed that no one could fully notice. Kakashi, good, then look for the other two young men, otherwise they will kill him. Sasuke denied in response. When a purple portal came out of his eye, and from there, he put his hand in taking out a Yuji tied with a rope-shaped Gudadama and an unconscious or deeply asleep Megumi. Naruto raised his hand and his Gudadama began to return to its sphere form, then disappear in his palm as if it had never existed, leaving the salmon hair free. He stood up, ready for any fight. His posture fell when he saw how normal Sensei and Nobara were with their opponent, which gave him a dubious look. Yuji, what did I miss? Naruto, besides the beating they gave the old man, it's almost nothing. Some time later. Time had passed, and now in what appeared to be a school. Naruto and Team 7 in general were walking alongside Satoru Gojo and his own team where Megumi, still unconscious, was being carried by Yuji. The team guided them to find accommodation. Since apparently, from what little they were told about the place, there were sorcerers who fought with creatures born from the bad feelings of normal people, although Naruto didn't remember it well because it was in his own mind. He knew that Kakashi and the other man, named Satoru Gojo, had agreed to provide him with lodging and more information about the place in exchange for some help from them with his problems. Although the agreement hadn't been fully arranged and proposed, it was already close. Yuji, then why doesn't Fushiguro wake up? Naruto was about to make a joke, but Sasuke cut him off. He's under an illusion. He thinks he won and just passed out from exhaustion. Sasuke replied, though his words only made his words more confusing. Yuji, huh? Naruto, in his mind, he struggled for a long time. So imagine his mind thinking he ran out of energy even when he didn't. He explained better, and Yuji nodded in understanding. Meanwhile, Gojo watched the conversation in the distance, interested. Illusionary techniques? If Megumi fell, they must be very realistic, he said in a confident voice. Yes, genjutsu are imperceptible because they manipulate the five senses. It's barely noticeable because of how it affects chakra. Kakashi explained calmly, giving this information wasn't very interesting. Nobara, so those genjutsu control that chakra, or something like that? The girl asked without looking at the old man similar to her teacher, while Naruto opened the door to let Yuji and his partner's body cross. Naruto. Not really, he said as he entered, followed by the rest of the group. The truth is, genjutsu doesn't just work on chakra, beyond what you might think. Genjutsu manipulates the blood vessels in the head to generate these illusions. Naruto looked around where apparently more people lived. Since there were several doors, that means there are more people around here, perhaps more teachers or students. Only because the chakra is composed of the energy produced by the body and mind. Affecting the body or the mind affects the chakra, just as affecting the chakra affects the body and mind. In short, the notable thing about a genjutsu on chakra isn't that it affects the chakra itself, but rather that it affects the mind from which the mental energy used to form the chakra comes. Sakura explained more basically, her hand glowing green. Come on, let me treat that wound. Sakura approached Yuji, who still had blood running down his head. That was a tough fight. Naruto smiled. His strength seems to increase from 1 second to the next at times, even surpassing me when I was distracted. Naruto smiled remembering that. That fight was the best he participated in because of the good choreography that Salmon Hair had. If they weren't on equal footing in speed and strength, Yuji could push him to the limit with his experience in such diverse martial arts. He was only just training in boxing and light fist, juken, though he still relied on pure speed and strength, as always. Sakura, that's amazing, how does that work? Sakura asked, looking at the salmon pink-haired boy with doubt, while stopping healing the boy because she was finished. Well, it's not something just me. It's because of the black flash, Kokusen. It's a strange phenomenon that happens very rarely. The cursed energy flashes for 0.000001 and raises the cursed energy power to 2.5. Naruto, it's strong but very unreliable. Expecting something to happen out of nowhere only limits you. Yuji nodded. Yes. Although I'm gradually using it more frequently. He thought, remembering that. I almost knew when I'd use it. Also, I have the divergent punch, which does something similar. But instead of elevating the punch, it just hits twice as hard in the same place, with little difference in timing. Naruto, hey old man. He called Gojo, who seemed to look at him. Can you do that? He pointed at Yuki, referring to the dark flash. Because anyone can do it. Gojo thought for a moment. If you mean I've done it, but I never succeeded. The white-haired man shrugged. I never needed to, since he always won quickly. Naruto nodded as he looked at Nobara, who had just finished being healed by Sakura. And what can you do? Since you didn't give Sakura any work, your specialty doesn't seem to be close combat, even if you use a hammer? Sakura grabbed Naruto's ear and twisted it, causing him to shed crocodile tears. Idiot, learn to be sensitive to others. Naruto. I'm sensitive, he said, rubbing his ear after being released. If it weren't like that, I wouldn't feel that way in the first place. He spoke with a small chuckle, which only drew a drop of sweat from the others. Nobara, for your information, alien, my technique is all about physical pearls. Or mostly. Sakura looked at her doubtfully. Is that true? What's this technique of yours about? You just threw a few nails at me and that's it. The pinkette recalled, recalling how confused she was when she saw simple nails thrown at her. That thing didn't even pierce her skin due to the girl's lack of strength. My technique is technically Budu. Naruto's expression went blank. So this sorcery thing can be taken seriously with you guys, huh? Naruto smiled, looking at Nobara, who looked back at him. Then, Sakura, don't say it, Naruto, advised the pink-haired girl who was ignored. Naruto, I can call you. Sasuke looked away. He knew it would happen here. It already happened with Naruto and a priestess a year ago if he remembered correctly. Which? Boom! Chapter 12. A blow from Nobara's hammer sent Naruto crashing through the wall. I'm going to kill you! Nobara frowned, a tick on her forehead. Megumi ignored all the commotion. So do you have any questions for us? Team Gojo thought for a few moments. You, more precisely. Where are you from? Yuji asked. And why are you coming here? The question caused Team Kakashi to become serious. Even the blonde who was entering seemed more serious. You can say our world isn't the most habitable, Naruto said, a little uncomfortable for the boy, who hid it as best he could. Team Gojo remained silent, realizing that the question was too personal and a very serious matter for them. I'm sorry. Before he could finish, Naruto was already behind him, patting him on the back. Don't worry, man, we all have sensitive issues. Naruto smiled, giving Itadori a thumbs up. At that moment, a playful smile spread across Naruto's face. Real sensitive topics are what women do every 3 months, Naruto whispered to Yuji, who turned blank. But Naruto was instantly pinned to the ground with a blow. I'll kill you if you make a joke like that again, you moron! Naruto gave a thumbs up, still not lifting his face from the cracked concrete. He really is an idiot, even more so than you, Itadori. The salmon-haired boy felt offended by that. Hey, you cheap copy of sensei. Kakashi looked at Nobara with a wide-eyed smile. I want to know something. How the hell are you guys so broad in skills? Naruto was about to speak, but Sasuke stopped him. Let the others talk, he said with a look at Naruto, who stuck his tongue out at him in response. Kakashi thought for a moment, trying to figure out what she meant. But then he remembered the whole opening line. You mean because we have so many different abilities, right? Team Kakashi seemed to react to that, and they all looked at the silver-haired man. What do you mean by that? Naruto asked Nobara. Although the girl didn't respond, Kakashi continued. I assume your question comes from the fact that you only have one ability per se, and the variations arise from that same ability, he said calmly. He recalled his battle with the white-haired man with a bandage. The man had a spatial barrier around him. He had an ability to attract everything in space and another to expel everything in space. This made it clear to him that they only have one ability, and that's where the variations come from. It was like Chidori, Electric Dog, and Raikiri. They were the same thing and arose from the same thing, but with other variations in different areas. Chidori was more powerful, Electric Dog was long range, and Raikiri was for more piercing. Or the Rasengan itself, and the variants Naruto created of it. Well, in addition to the Kekkai Genkai, all the skills in our world must be learned and trained. From the age of 8, people begin training in basic skills to begin their journey in the ninja world. Then, from the age of 13 onward, it all depends on the path you want to take. He explained calmly. That means you can all have the same abilities, no more. Have lots of abilities and all that? No restrictions? Kakashi shook his head. Not really. The silver-haired man smiled again. Besides some blessed by God. The man looked at Naruto and Sasuke, who went blank because Hotaki always used them as examples of blessed beings. Few have the ability to have many abilities. Well, we are born with connections to one of the 5 natural abilities, which are fire, wind, lightning, earth, and water. Besides some. The man looked again at Naruto and Sasuke, who rolled their eyes for the second time. Naruto, envy sucks, right? Sasuke looked at Naruto with a questioning expression, not understanding what he said. The blonde simply denied it. I read it on a sign outside. It's a Portuguese language. Well, in short, it all depends on the person, since few are born with more than one affinity. Most only have one element and a few non-elemental ones. And others have varied elemental abilities. Sakura, and then there are the medical ninja. I included looking at her sensei with a very kind smile. Kakashi, yes, and then there are the medical ninja like Sakura here. Nobara, a doctor being so strong? That's surprising. Sakura, I was trained as a combat medic. Even though I'm a medic, I'm a shinobi, so I should have defended myself. But I mostly stay in the back and only act if it's really necessary. I clarified with a smile to Kujisaki. Does that mean you don't fight? Yuji asked. But Sakura denied it. Well, I was trained by the only medical ninja who doesn't have to comply with that rule, and because of my strength I can also be a top fighter, she said smiling, remembering Tsunade. Although that memory also made him remember how the woman and all her friends ended up. Anyway, since everyone answered each other's questions, let's talk about what's important. Team 7 turned to look at Gojo. What's important, old man? Goku got a tick on his forehead for being an old man. He's referring to the Naruto deal. The blonde became even more confused. Huh? Didn't you guys already talk about that on the way here? Kakashi shook his head. You could say that. But there are still loose ends, the silver-haired man said. Unless you're the only ones here, or you're the highest authority. That conversation isn't really important. Gojo, as my secret Dan says here. Kakashi rolled his eyes. I'm just a teacher here, this is my team as you already know them. This is Nobara Kujisaki, the aggressive Tsundere. This is Yuji Itadori, the smiling idiot, kind and good at coming to blows. And the sleepyhead over there is Megumi Fushiguro, the serious, cold, calculating emo. And me, the sensei who doesn't teach him anything out of laziness. He said the last part, laughing, and Kakashi felt a drop of sweat because the description sounded so similar to his team. And worse, the last part was also too similar to him. Satoru, ultimately, I don't have the authority to decide whether they stay, but I can convince the higher-ups to do so for a good deal, he said with a smile. Naruto, you're lying, the blonde man said to the white-haired man, who looked at him confused. Huh? Naruto looked at the man. I can sense when someone is lying or has bad intentions, and you're lying, he said calmly, although his mind wasn't on the matter. He was more focused on imagining food because of how hungry he was. Gojo looked at the blonde, interested. That's interesting. I don't really lie though, or SOSO. I have no political authority here. But I'm the strongest sorcerer. I can convince them with simple threats and all that. Naruto nodded. He knew what it meant to be the strongest, someone with the power to decide over others without any real limits. He learned that from Nagato. He was the strongest of all Konoha and could decide over their lives without any problem. Just as he could decide if they revived after that. Naruto, then why don't you do it? Satoru, well, besides the fact that threats lead nowhere and only pave the way for a flawed path, your help would also be very helpful. In Tokyo, the number of curses has increased by 30% compared to before. Naruto, is that a lot? I ask. I didn't know how much it was before, so that 30% could be about 3% more than before and I wouldn't know. Well, the average varies. I shrug. Sometimes they're many but weak, other times they're few but strong. Because the number of people in Tokyo generates a large amount of cursed energy that then gives way to cursed spirits. Yuji, they also tend to stay in one place, like it's their home or their birthplace. Naruto went blank. Naruto, that reminds me of a comic I read a while back. He thought, remembering a similar term from a manga he'd read in his youth. The Uzumaki could tell he was on the way to a duo who loved each other, or were just starting to. But I couldn't remember it, even though the name was a similar repetition of the same thing a few times. Kakashi, that means that in exchange for being here in peace, we are a type of continuous help or just in some moments, right? Saturo nodded. Something like that, beauty, but think of it as a continuation for some. Your skills would be useful to me in various places. Possibly one or two of you could go to Kyoto as well, where you could be better utilized there. Kakashi nodded. It wasn't much different from his shinobi work, but he didn't really mind. The treatment was good, for the most part. His service to this place was a place of peace even after learning he wasn't what they called human. Kakashi. We can accept that. Although we'll need a lot more than ignoring our peculiar situation. Like lodging, food, and maybe a salary. He said calmly, thinking of taking out his book to read it, but he wasn't interested in reading it yet. Some time later. Megumi wasn't one for open cursing. She preferred to shout it in her mind or whisper it, but after having won a battle as difficult as the one she had with that lightning-using boy, which seemed like a bigger hell than the one she had with Sukuna. And so, when he woke up, he cursed, not knowing what else to do. Although that was more due to a headache than anything else, it still caught the attention of some people around him. And well, those were Yuji and his teacher Satoru Gojo, who looked at him in confusion. What a surprise, Sleeping Beauty isn't so sleepy anymore. Gojo joked, and Yuji smiled in response. Fushiguro. You finally woke up. I thought something more than just an illusion technique really happened. Megumi looked at his partner in confusion. Illusion technique? He asked, looking at his teacher in doubt, and the man seemed to recognize his gaze. The boy you fought earlier. Sasuke, I believe his name is. He uses a powerful illusion that affects all 5 senses, making you believe you actually won. Megumi was surprised. Was it really that accurate? Yuji asked, looking at his partner, who didn't seem to notice that he was in an illusion. If he wasn't told, the boy seemed to have lived believing that he had actually won that fight. Megumi, I felt every blow, every kick, every sound, every smell, the resistance of the air. Everything was so real, it couldn't possibly be an illusion. Fushiguro still didn't believe it. An illusion? That must be a lie. Where was it a lie? When did he fall into the illusion, and above all, how did this illusion have its abilities? The creator of the illusion must have had that information to create it, right? So how did Sasuke create that illusion with his abilities and his shadows? Unless he did some research or something, but was that possible? Megumi-sensei, where are these people? Did they manage to escape? Were they captured or something? Normally, Fushiguro wouldn't doubt his master. After all, he was the strongest sorcerer in the world. But those guys were on another level. He doesn't know what they were born from, but they must have been something very hated to have that strength. He had already seen the power of a special grade, and although it was impossible to defeat him, he still saw the level, and these guys, if they were curses, were easily special grade. Their speed was enough to disappear from everyone's sight as if they were invisible, strong enough to take them, separate them in an instant without them being able to put up a fight, and with such strange abilities. They were simply too much for what he had experienced, which was not much, but was not little either. Satoru, well, we can say that the report does say that we captured them, the bandaged man shrugged. But really, they're out there. He pointed toward the bedroom door. Hearing that, Megumi ran out, pushing open the traditional sliding door and following the path out the door. Where there seemed to be several people, if the voices were any indication. Oh look, Sasuke, it's the boy you slept with. Megumi looked up and noticed that, in addition to the 3 boys she did remember, there was a pink-haired girl next to her. Everyone sat on the steps outside the academy. The oldest of them all was reading a book with an orange cover that made it very clear he was 18 plus because of the large symbol on the cover. The blonde and black-haired boys seemed to be chatting next to the girl. Yes, Naruto. Sasuke didn't seem interested in Megumi, as he continued eating what appeared to be a rice dumpling. Why are you all so quiet here? Yuji, well, they are our friends now, he said, smiling, as he approached the group. What Yuji and Megumi are saying, it was all a misunderstanding, apparently. They weren't curses, they were aliens, said Gojo, standing next to Megumi, who looked at him and blinked, kept looking at him, while blinking continuously and kept blinking. Sigh. I'm going to sleep, I need it. The Fushiguro turned around, though Sasuke was standing there as he did so. You really don't? You've been fine all along, and you're not exhausted. That was all a Megumi illusion. The Fushiguro finished and nodded. I know, he said calmly, while Naruto came out from behind Sasuke. Why do we teleport like this? I asked Sasuke, ignoring the blonde and his idiotic mood. I want to apologize. Illusions aren't really something you should use on non-shinobi. After that, they'll always have the feeling of whether they're experiencing something real or something fake, he said, looking at Megumi, who frowned. Fushiguro didn't deny it. After experiencing something so real, he couldn't really trust the boy in front of him. If he could create illusions so realistic, how did he know this was actually real? How did he know he didn't use this ability on everyone else to make them believe they weren't enemies? I really couldn't trust because I didn't know how much or how real things were and what illusory things were. Naruto looked at Sasuke in confusion. Why do they put so much emphasis on an illusion? I mean, it's perfectly normal, he said with a shrug. Although Sasuke didn't think the same. In someone from our world? It really would just be an illusion. You know when your chakra is normal or altered. But in someone who can't and doesn't have a way to differentiate illusion from reality, it must be just an illusion. Sasuke looked at Megumi, who was looking at him seriously. I just have to confirm your word, right? Sasuke nodded. The only way to truly know whether it's real or not is with my word. It's the only way to let you know you're not in an illusion of mine. The rest could all be a hoax, at the very least. Sasuke shook Megumi's hand. As Sasuke Uchiha, I tell you with every word that there are no illusions about you. Nothing about anything. Megumi sighed. Fine. Fushiguro took the hand. I'll trust these words, Sasuke. Megumi squeezed the hand, staring into the now black eyes of her former opponent and seemingly close ally.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.